It's Thursday night, and you know what that means. We've gathered around the internet to ask the question we ask each and every week, and that is, hey, did you see this one? Oh, hello, everybody. It's the podcast that you watch on Thursday night, or you watch it later.
It's the podcast that comes in a little glass vial.
It's a little glass vial?
A little glass vial.
That was well played and well done. Hello, everybody. Why is this? Looks like is it playing the correct thing? It is. It's just a little delayed on the other thing. Sorry. Hello, everyone. We're here for another episode of Hey Did You See This One? Of course, you can see that Cassandra has joined us once again, but you may notice that besides her special guest, there's only two of us. I just want to get this out of the way at the beginning. Kaylin has decided to step away from the podcast. We wish him all the best. It's not like a whole thing. It's just he decided that it was time for him to move on. We do wish him all the best, like I said, and anytime, Kaylin, you want to come back and be a guest on the show, you're perfectly welcome. We almost made it to 100 episodes with him.
It was the breaking point.
He was like, 100 is too many. I'm out of here. No, I'm kidding.
Hopefully he decides to come back and do guest spots. But, we've been ramping up guests as a thing for the last couple of months. So, anytime he wants to come back and do a guest spot, the door is always open, brother.
The door is always open, brother. Let me just do a little Justaruski there. There we go. But that aside, Kaylin, we love you. That aside, as you've probably noticed, Cass is with us once again. She was on for Ghost in the Shell a few weeks ago. And it went so well that she decided to tell us that we should watch the movie Repo. I think what had happened is, like, I mentioned to Steve that I wanted to watch that movie, and Steve mentioned that to you just in passing. And then you were like, do you want to do that for the show? So what we ended up doing, and I'll introduce this now, we're actually doing a whole month of musicals. Musical Madness month, I think is what we landed on for the name.
Or Manic Musical Month, because we're doing all musicals that are starring unhinged whack jobs.
The only way to do it. That's a true musical.
It's true. And me and Cass were talking last night too, and she mentioned Cabaret, and I was like, that's a little too hinged for this month. So this may be a recurring month that comes up, like how we do John Carpenter month and the Grimoire, etc. The next time we do it, maybe we do some more classics. But this month we're doing probably the four most ridiculous musicals in existence, and we're starting off strong with probably the weirdest, most unhinged thing, not just musical, but like thing I've ever watched. And
it is utter chaos.
Repo, the genetic opera. Steve, I'm realizing now we didn't really decide who hosts this week, but you know what I'm realizing? It's like maybe that format is, maybe that's dead and gone. Maybe we're
hosting. We're both hosts. We're going to host together.
We're the hosts with the most, and we have.
And I am here.
And Cass is here.
And you're here to essentially like be the sponge that's already soaked up all of the repo knowledge over your entire life, and you're just going to squeeze it all into a couple of hours of discussion.
I was thinking about this earlier. The best way I can describe watching Repo in any way, either you get a bunch of friends and none of you know what's happening and you just have a good time, or you treat it like an acid trip and a shaman, and you just have the person who knows what's happening and they just guide you through.
Yeah.
The
I think
entire
our watch through was very enjoyable because we had four people. All three of us were together, plus Brian, who is a friend of the show and potential future guest. But it was great because we basically were just talking over to and sort of playing like Ring Around the Rosie with the movie itself and each other, being like, who can make the funniest comment for this weird thing that's happening on screen right now?
Yeah, you very much Sherpa'd us through it. We talked about this last night when we were watching it, but if me and Steve watched it individually, I don't think we would have gotten the same kind of satisfaction out of it. And I think that I would have been confused. I think that I wanted to sort of bring up was the fact that musicals are already a situation where you're translating song to figure out what's happening. And this movie has a couple of weird tangents. It's got cut songs, which I would go on to learn after. And I really felt like it was necessary to have a superfan in the room to do this. I think if for whatever reason me and Steve just like decided we're going to do Repo this month, we would come on this show tonight and be like, I don't know. Yeah, exactly. I don't know what I just watched. Everything went way over my head. But we'll get to that in a moment. Just before we get too lost in the sauce here, I do want to do a sort of the thing we do. What the fuck am I talking about? We do it every goddamn week.
You're doing so good. 10 out of 10 already.
Our history with the show, you mean?
Yeah, our history with the show. Here, I got.
Some might call it a brief history.
A brief history.
Sorry.
Well, that's delightful.
I looked down at my phone and somebody just called me. So I hope everything's okay.
It's the police.
It's the police.
We're
calling.
at your door. We're getting in. Coming to take your organs
and give you a little.
You just hear from
vial.
the other side. I remember.
Yep.
But since
I'm your father.
a little glass vial.
Yeah.
Since Cass, you have the most experience and the longest history, I would say, why don't you go ahead and go first? I think that would be give everybody and not only your history, but give everybody just an information dump. Just
all right. Well, I am very good at an information dump, so let's go. I first heard of this film, I guess maybe a couple months before it was released. I was in a theater group in London, Ontario, and we were talking about this last night. I remembered I was in Tommy when I found this musical, and the director of it was like very much like just like a cool dude who was like very much in kind of like a goth emo punky scene. And he came up to all of us and just said, "Hey, I need to show you something." And he pulled out his phone and showed us Zydrate Anatomy with no context. And I looked at him.
Me a goth showed you this movie?
I know.
I find that hard to believe. Yeah.
Who knew?
Never. I thought like a person that wears like sunflowers on their hat and polka dots on their shirt.
Paris Hilton is in this movie, so
yeah.
True. But I will say also like an incredible actor, incredible creator, very creative person. He was just like, this is so cool. And he showed us all individually the Zydrate Anatomy scene that was released, I think around the same time that the trailer dropped. I kind of released it in like a 2-part. And I watched it and I looked him dead in the eye and I said, "What is this? And can I have more of it, please?" And he told me that he basically kind of knew a bit of the lore about it already. It was an off-Broadway production. It was kind of a bit chaos in itself. It was not supposed to run as long as it did, but it kept selling out tickets. People kept buying it. It was just immediately came to following. And the first time I watched it in full, it was with that director and a bunch of our theater troupe. And we all sat down on like pillows and stuff in like a living room and watched it on the big screen. And it was like my little, I think I was, I don't know, like 15, my brain just absorbed it and was like, I don't know what this is, but this aesthetic is amazing. The music is super grungy and cool. And I was also like, I was listening to My Chemical Romance every night. Like that was my vibe. I loved it. I was like, give me the macabre every single day. I'm here for it. And
for such a specific macabre though. It's an emo, that emo aesthetic is so specific.
But like also like poetic and beautiful and darkness within like light within the dark, right? Seeing both sides. And so I got the DVD, and for about a month I would bring it up to my room. I had like a portable DVD player and didn't have a TV in my room, and it put me to sleep for like a month. I just would put it on when I'm getting ready for bed, and it would be my lullaby.
You drift off, and then you wake up, and you're just watching Nathan Head ripping someone's guts out.
Absolutely. I was like, oh, I feel so safe. But yeah, it's very much an ode to the goths, the freaks, the musical theater kids, the outcasts. It's just a fun romp of a time. So that was my introduction and why I love it.
So now the viewers see why it was probably necessary for somebody with that kind of knowledge. It'd be like if it'd be like when we did basketball or when we did The Complete Owl. The Complete Owl is this like Weird Al thing that came out in the 80s that kind of covered his career up to like that point, so like a couple years.
But not with Daniel Radcliffe.
No. That's a.
We did do that movie in that month, though.
That was way better. But this thing was basically just a bunch of music videos with these little interstitials that sort of tied together into a movie, and these guys hated it because it wasn't like a movie. But I remember it being a thing I rented from the movie store, and it's the same kind of thing. Like it, very comforting when I was a kid to have a certain...
Yeah, but I think our discussion turned out to be positive because you're so passionate about it, right? Which is exactly why we brought Cass on for this discussion. I don't know if me and you would be able to talk too much about Repo without Cass here to guide the discussion, you know?
We would not...
I think it's very much like, you know, art is art and it doesn't speak to everybody, but when it does, it hits you like a brick wall and it just goes through and it stays forever. No. So it doesn't have to be good. It just has to make you feel something.
But this is also quite enjoyable because of how wacky and insane it is, right? Like it's absolutely bananas. It's so low budget. It reminds me of sort of like a shitty sci-fi movie, but like it's not terrible acting paired with terrible special effects and all that stuff. It's just kind of like overly gory with not a lot of like great cinematography, but you don't need it because the music is there to support the scene. The actors are all really good singers. Like I don't think there was anybody whose performance was jarring, except for maybe the old geneticist man who's dying, where his performance was like all over the place. So it's like sometimes he's belting out crazy opera numbers and it sounds amazing, and then other times he just like spoken word rapping and grumbling to himself in an elevator, and you're like, is he? Yeah. Well, Steve, was this the first take?
Steve, why don't you give us your like history with the movie? Did you before this week? Had you ever? Because I feel like when we talked about it, you had seen this before, right?
I believe I have seen this before, but it was when it first came out onto like video on demand. There was like when you remember when, like digital cable first became sort of really big. It was one of those things where it would play on those movie channels, and I would catch bits and pieces of it, and I was just like, "What the fuck is this? It's kind of cool. It's kind of weird," but I wasn't really into it enough to sit down and watch it, because I think if I had a group of people to watch it with, I would have given it probably a bit more of a chance, because it encapsulates a lot of the things that I enjoy in, you know, campy horror, right? Your experience that you described reminds me a lot of my experience when I first heavily got into The Evil Dead, where like none of my friends were about it, and I watched it and I was like, I have to get all my friends to like this somehow, and I did, through the power of narcissism and manipulation. Yeah, exactly.
And you're doing it all again now in the year of our Lord 2023. 15 years later.
But I don't have like a solid memory of watching it from beginning to end, and even to the point that I had seen the viral TikTok of the, you know, Zytrate comes in a little glass vial, and like it had been going on. A little glass vial. And I didn't even know that was from this. And I'd seen it recently. And then while I was watching the movie last night, I was like, oh, yes, it's from this. Or like I looked it up like a week ago or whatever. And it's like, oh, okay. Maybe this movie will rule. The best song in the movie by far, though.
It's very good.
Because it goes, you know, against your anatomy.
Yeah.
Your anatomy.
Which is anywhere, I guess.
Exactly. But he chooses the most sexual area of the body.
Of course.
Right in your inner thigh at the very top.
Yeah.
Right where
Grave
it feels
robbers,
the best.
gross.
They're
all gross, honestly.
They should have delved into that stuff a little bit more, I think. Maybe not.
The Zydrate thing?
If they all get their genitals removed and replaced.
We'll get to that
the
point.
Genital opera. We talked about this.
maybe we should do like a very short summarization of what the movie is about. It
I
takes
need
place.
to give you my
Oh,
history.
All right.
Yes.
Give your
Movie
history.
of the film. You're just gonna steamroll me already. We're just the
Well,
two
I
of
want to
us.
steamroll through the basic idea
Okay.
of the movie, but go ahead. Yeah.
My history is similar to yours, Steve. In 2008, Cass, you and my cousin Ronan are about the same age, and Ronan was raised in a household where so for me, I was raised in a household where I was allowed to watch whatever I want, but I watched RoboCop, and then I couldn't handle any gore or horror or action or that messed me up. But he was raised in a household where
His dad was a surgeon, and he kept him locked in the attic and kept him sick his whole life. His
dad would just show him everything and anything. Like, he was just allowed to watch whatever. But he had that constant, like, he would get through his nightmare and then move on to the next thing, where I just, like, stewed in my nightmares for 25 years. And anyway, I remember when this movie came out, I went to visit. They lived out in the country, and I would go to visit their house. And he was just like, he had this like sponge of a brain when he was like 14 or 15, and he'd be able to like recite, like, he knows all Bo Burnham, like he knows how to recite all Bo Burnham. It's your generation.
Yeah.
It's you young millennials. Us elder millennials are like, Bo Burnham.
I believe we're called geriatric millennials now.
I mean, my body's really starting to hurt. So.
How do you think?
Listen, you guys heard me complaining about my lower back yesterday, right?
Me and Steve actually both had this. We hung out together, and then the next preceding days we both had the same back issues. So what did we do?
I don't know, man. I don't remember.
At any rate,
it's off the record.
Yeah, exactly. That's off the record.
We don't discuss that on mic.
I remember he would quote it at me, and then I picked up the DVD case to be like, what is this? And in my 20s, I still couldn't handle any gore. He was like, oh man, it's brutal. They like steal your organs. And then he'd be like, Cidrate comes in a little glass vial, and just say the whole song. And then I was like, I don't know. But also, I remember it being on early, like, on demand. I remember it being around. And then from about the Vine era, in around 2011 to now, that meme of that moment of Alexa Vega going, a little glass vial, has permeated the whole memosphere, as I like to call it.
Took over.
I've never said that before. But that's basically my history. Just him yell rapping the lyrics to all the songs at me. And
I will say, if you were friends with any of us in this theater troupe, we would have all done the same thing to you. That was just
a little glass vial, a
little glass vial all the time. It didn't stop.
But it is like, we watched it last night together, and like I've said already, like I don't think this would have the same effect on me had I just watched it on my lunch break like I normally do with the movies. And I think it, like, me and Steve should really consider making it, maybe not for every single movie, but I'll try to come over after work on Wednesdays.
Yeah, now that you're close by after work, it makes sense. Yeah,
makes sense to come over, watch a movie. Any guests who are going to guest can come by. You know, Cassandra, just come by. Also, I told you this off the record, now I'm telling you this on the record to keep you honest, but I will be calling on you to be on the show frequently. So
yeah, do it. I've already told you that you have to watch Reefer Madness, so it's.
And we're not
just
talking.
Let me know whenever.
We're not talking about Reefer Madness, the like 1950s black and white propaganda film. Cass, you watched me.
It's the musical with Kristen Bell and Alan Cumming, and it's a satire, and it's a roller coaster that does not stop.
I had the same conversation with you where I was like, "Are you talking about like the movie where it's like women crave it and men go insane for it?"
I mean, it is very much the OG propaganda film. Just like take that and put a lens under it, and then make a badass like orchestra level underneath it. It's very good.
Like many shitty film students that were my age, I had a Reefer Madness poster in my room in university.
Watch it all the time. Same thing. I wasn't a film student, but I was a weed student.
I was a student of weed, man.
Okay, so that is our. So I have a clip to play for the body of the episode. We're gonna shuffle this into like more structure, but you know these bodies are pretty funny. So here we go.
Ho 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 ho! Everybody back up, because here comes the body of the episode.
That's not the one where you go, wow.
No, that's later on. And by the way, did you get the MPAA for this? Because I didn't.
No, I think that might have died with Caleb.
But that recording is so good.
I know.
Beautiful.
Anyway,
In the body, yaddy, yaddy.
So
Yaddy, yaddy, yaddy,
Repo,
yaddy, yaddy,
the genetic opera, is a movie that takes place in the not so distant future where everybody's organs are failing, and basically there's a small city on an island that's surrounded by an endless graveyard. And because everybody's organs are failing, they have to take out loans to get new organs, and also simultaneously the wealthy are becoming addicted to surgery because it's, like a fashion statement to have plastic surgery done, while people are also requiring it in order to not die. But because the organs are so expensive, people often default on their debts, which means that they have to be repossessed. And so there is a repo man or repo men that exist in this world who will track you down like fucking Batman, string you up and rip out your spine because you got a spine transplant or something.
Yeah, like when you rent a couch and you can't pay your couch payments and they come take your
so
couch.
they come and rip your spine out.
That's happened to me so many times. I've lost so many couches.
But that's sort of the world build that exists here. But there is a single company that essentially is in charge of all of this. It's the company at the heart of the city called GeneCo, and they're the ones that sell you your organs and are also the ones that send the repossessors after you when you default to get those organs back if you can't pay for them. This company is run by a very mafia style man. He's an opera singer, and he's got psychotic BioShock style children who are all addicted to surgery, and just one of them just murders people constantly when he gets even remotely upset.
He just has anger issues.
Well, he's the kind of guy that if you went into a restaurant and he asked for a Diet Coke and you asked if Pepsi was okay, he would just immediately stab you in the chest multiple times. Yeah. And then there's also a man who has a sick daughter who is taking care of his daughter after the mother died in childbirth. And it turns out, he's a repo man in disguise. But he's disguised for some reason. I guess it's not like his daughter would ever see him, but I guess he just doesn't want the world to see him. But it's also sort of it's also kind of a good duality for his his two personalities. He's got the night surgeon personality, and then he's got his dad personality.
We speculated too that he sort of, my headcanon also is that he went insane because of what happened, and now it is like a Batman villain where he's fully needs to be institutionalized.
Yeah,
and
it's a full dissociation. I can't take it anymore. I've done I'm the worst, and becomes a monster.
It feels like the Koopa kids, as I like to call them, the Roddy kids know how to get him going to turn into that monster who can go do repos. Because later in the movie, we'll get to it, but later in the movie they try to rile him up, and he's just no, I can't kill him.
But he also riles himself up a couple times as well, right? He has that one man locked in his basement in a wheelchair.
Remind me to touch on this later, but I there's a very cool psychological therapy moment that Nathan unfortunately never got. But remind me of the dual personality and trauma response link later.
Sure.
Well, here's what I'll do. I'll break it up. Did you synopsis the plot?
I mean, sort of. It's a very basic plot where the girl wants to leave. She's very much like a Rapunzel style character. She's locked in a room. She's not allowed to leave the house because she's sick, and her father's convinced her that if she goes outside without a gas mask, she'll die. But later on in the film, you discover that he's keeping her sick in order to be able to take care of her and to ensure that she's safe. But he's also keeping her sick to ensure that she doesn't leave the house because he doesn't want her to be part of the horrifying circus world that exists outside, where everybody's in Marilyn Manson clothing and
it's a Marilyn Manson
killing
each
other.
Marilyn Manson.
Everybody's got at least one boob out at all times.
They're all banging. I did something for you, Steve.
Oh, okay.
The MPAA, everyone. The MPAA. Wow.
I found the MPA.
Wow.
Wow. I found the MPAA. It's 44,359. I was fully ready for this one to not be rated, like not be an official movie, but it is officially rated by the Motion Picture Association of America, which means that it's like legally rated, which is pretty rad, because I could fully see this just being a thing that people put together and put out,
Yeah.
Right.
So it's an official
Also,
movie.
fun fact, Paris Hilton won a Razzie Award for this movie. So that's pretty fun.
Oh.
That both
But she's so
surprises
good.
me, but doesn't surprise me, and it surprises
Well, societally, it doesn't surprise
me.
me, but
Yeah. We should say that she hadn't really been in a lot of stuff at this time, and she was known as a person that is sort of like her persona was a joke, right? Like people knew her as a joke. So it seems appropriate. We should also mention that she plays one of the children of the GeneCo.
She plays Wendy Koopa.
Yeah, she plays Wendy Koopa. She's the daughter of the evil billionaire
Miss Amber Sweet.
Roti Largo. Yeah, she's Amber Sweet, and her deal is that she's addicted to surgery. She's addicted to the knife. Addicted to the knife? Addicted to the knife. Yeah. We should also mention that there is sort of a narrator character who's called the Grave Robber, and he sort of is persistent throughout the movie. He's not really a character where he has direct influence on the plot, but in a way he does, but not really. Like the movie, if you were to pull him out of the movie, it could still exist, but his primary existence in the film is just kind of like walking on stage with a newspaper and being like, "Holy shit, have you heard the word?"
I likened
This
him,
is crazy.
Yeah.
I likened him to like he kind of has a Beetlejuice vibe, but Beetlejuice is sort of the central plot of that movie. He's kind of
I would say he's like Gonzo in A Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
actually really accurate.
Yeah.
I'd say that's more accurate.
Yeah. He only really
That's very
interacts with Paris Hilton's character and Shiloh.
Yeah, he has one or two moments where he is present in the story, but like I said, he doesn't necessarily need to be there. That whole thing could still happen without him.
Yeah.
He's kind of the he's like Irving the explainer. He's the one who he's there to tell us what the heck's going on, to make sure that we're not completely lost in this bananas world, because there is so much lore that you have to pre-establish in this before you walk in, or else you would be completely confused as to what's going on without
You
him
can still be
explaining it to you.
confused.
After
all of the exposition, you can still be confused.
While we're on the subject of Paris Hilton, quickly, I'm just looking at her IMDb because I'm trying to remember what that reality show she was on.
Simple Life?
Yeah, Simple Life. But she's in a short with the Irwin family and Uber Eats. So they're just commercials, obviously. But one of them is called That's So Crikey. And I thought that was worth mentioning because of how ridiculous that is.
That's so crikey.
Like instead of that's so hot.
Incredible.
So if you think about her
like,
saying
that's
that's
so crazy.
so crikey, I think that's funny to me. That is humorous to me.
Well,
she had a really
as long
good
as it's
catchphrase,
humorous
it
to
worked.
somebody out there.
That's hot.
Yeah.
I love it. That's hot. I love Paris.
So I mean, I guess we can kind of walk through the plot. I do like. I want to talk about each of the children individually because I think that they are weirdly interesting, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
They do very much remind me of the mad people under the sea in BioShock, where you're like exploring
very much that.
Whatever that city was called in what was it called? The city in BioShock.
Century City or something?
Rapture. It's called Rapture, yeah.
Yes.
I'm Andrew Ryan, and I made this city to be a utopia under the sea, and everybody went insane within a year.
Almost immediately.
Yeah.
Also deals with some crazy plastic surgery in that.
Yeah, there's a character who is addicted to giving people plastic surgery. I remember there's a recording in that game where the doctor is performing surgery, and he's like, "No, it's I did such a good on the nose. Maybe I should
It's
I
so
should work on
good.
her eyes as well. And the nurse is like, "You can't do that, doctor. Doctor, stop cutting. Doctor." And then he goes,
Stop cut. And
starts
it's
like,
and then like everything blacks out around you, and you only have
Yeah.
like the blast of your shotgun to like see
light it,
anything
yeah.
coming. It's so scary.
That game
BioShock is
rules.
amazing.
Yeah, that's also a game that should be made into a movie. Like
It
that,
should be.
it lends
The
itself
lore is
well to.
amazing.
If
Yeah,
we're getting a Fallout TV show that's going to ruin Fallout for everybody, we should definitely have a BioShock TV show or movie, because at least the aesthetic of that world is a lot more entertaining than something like ruining Fallout will be just a boring guy in a desert.
Well, the thing about BioShock
you can't really
is,
ruin an underwater world. With
I
all
would
these
say that the
crazy
thing
people.
about BioShock that lends itself to television or movies is that it has a very strict and straightforward and rudimentary storyline that they could just follow as a template, and like The Last of Us, how they
Last of Us
basically
is
just
so good.
made the game into a show. They could do that with BioShock, whereas Fallout, it's like there's 1 billion side quests that are more interesting than the main story in any Fallout game. So which one are you going to choose?
Storylines in the Fallout games are always like, you got to find something that's going to help save the world, and that's
Go find your
pretty
son.
much it. All of the fun of Fallout are all the little weird places you find, you know.
Yeah. This whole sort of concept did remind me a lot of BioShock, though, which I think is why I was into it so much, because BioShock is one of my favorite video game series, and one of the children, whose name was Pavi
Pavi.
Ogre.
Ogre from Skinny Puppy.
Skinny
And
Puppy's a band, right?
It is a band.
That's exactly what my cousin said to me today. He said, Pavi is Ogre from Skinny Puppy. And I felt, even though Skinny Puppy's like an 80s band, I still felt like a geriatric man. I was like, what are these kids' words you're saying at me?
It's also spelled O-H, capital G-R-E, like ogre.
Yeah.
Ogre.
Ogre.
I love it.
That's pretty good.
It's very funny.
That's like the
Sure.
guitarist for Nirvana, Pat Smear. Pat Smear, and also the Foo Fighters, Pat Smear.
Jeez.
Stunning. Please welcome to the stage, Pat Smear.
Everyone's like, what? Did
Stunning.
he say that wrong?
It's a great drag name.
Well, it is.
But his character, it specifically reminds me of that plastic surgery character from BioShock so much, because it's the same concept. It's like he's got a face stretched out. And you know what? The first BioShock game came out around the time that I think the musical was coming out. So there is a chance that BioShock inspired the musical.
I think that
I wouldn't see how it couldn't.
I think that both characters were inspired by Bruce Campbell and Escape from LA, though, because that's another, the plastic surgery planet in Escape from LA is very much reminds me of this whole fucking,
for sure. It's like it's a very kooky idea that is like always shocking to think about.
Being addicted to plastic surgery is like it's
a real thing. You see those people that look like aliens.
Yeah, it's putting a mirror on like actual reality, but as a horror concept, it's so fucking like nightmarish.
It's unsettling. It's like,
it reminds
because they think they look good. He's got a mirror with him at all times. Like the entire movie.
I was so into it.
He's got a face stapled onto his face.
He also has different faces from multiple people. I just want you to keep that in mind. He switches them out all the time. Where are those faces coming from?
I kind of wish there was a scene where he gets like a moment where he's in like a room full of mirrors, like a fun house of mirrors, and he's just swapping faces out. That'd be dope.
Oh, that would be so cool.
Yeah,
it's perfect
just
for
like
this
ripping
movie.
them off and putting other ones on, and you never really get to see his real face. You just get to see him like go behind a curtain for a second and come out with like a weird new face on.
Yeah. I will say also, just to touch on the point of kind of where this came from, because yes, maybe it was BioShock, but according to the lore, when Darren, Terrence, who plays the grave robber, originally made this, he was like a rocker dude, and he had a friend of his who was basically getting evicted and had no money and was like moving out his stuff. And he had this idea of like, well, what do you have left? Like, if they can take everything from you.
Well, at least they got my organs.
Well, like body parts, that's all you have left. You just have what is on your body. And that was kind of a spark of.
I just looked it up to to make sure that I wasn't talking out my butt. Turns out I was, because BioShock came out in 2007, and the musical itself was written in 2002. So,
Okay.
if anything, this inspired that character in BioShock.
I still posit that the concept of a weird plastic.
I know, but
surgery
you live and die by
dimension.
your theories, Jason.
It's true, and
You'll never admit that your ideas are foolish.
I don't have one this week,
Shots
but
fired.
we gotta hear it. We gotta hear it.
No! It's him! Run! Run! He's got his theories! They're all...
Okay, well that one goes on
That's
and on and on.
I made a shorter one for you, you know.
I know. Well,
I like the extended version.
yeah.
The extended
The
cut.
director's cut.
That's my director's cut, yeah.
I don't really have, just since we played the segment, I don't really have any theories other than like my head canon. Because it's a musical, you're kind of forced to fill in a lot. And actually, Cass, will you tell us a little bit about what was cut from this movie? Because you said there was a song that's cut. Also, I understand that this is the second in what I guess was supposed to be a trilogy.
Yes, it was supposed to be. Okay, so I kind of have to step back a bit in the history of how this came to be. Basically, Terrence, rocker dude, made a bunch of songs and then ended up making what was the, I guess, original idea of Repo, which was called the Necromancer's Debt. And that was the first iteration of this being a stage play. And over time, I think it was in like 2002, I want to say, is when that kind of started to be fully formed. And the way that this guy and his partner at the time, they were the ones that were creating things together, and then he moved on to do other things with someone else. They have this thing that it feels like they have all of these ideas all at once, and they have a bunch of threads leading them together, and they don't have an editor. And so that's why at this point, when we see Repo in the movie, we miss a lot of things because things have been cut or shifted around or kind of switched. Like actually, I won't say this yet because it's a major spoiler. Not a spoiler. Roddy Largo was actually not the father in the original. He was one of the brothers, and Amber was his daughter. So very different dynamics, all kind of attaching to the same theme. In this specific movie, like the main things that were cut out, I will talk about one later when we get like to the very, very end. We have scenes cut of the grave robber and Shiloh having moments of connecting with Marnie, who was her mother, who passed. She was like stolen away out of her house. That's crazy. And we don't see any of that other than, I guess, the things that were left in the film for a cool shot that now, without the context, makes absolutely no sense. There were multiple songs cut, multiple things switched around, and relationships switched around. And now we have this kind of mess. That is beautiful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. The way that it was explained to me is that, like, the comic book stuff is sort of can be put together and is like a prequel. You could the way I understand, the way it was explained to me is like they sort of wanted that to be like its own thing, those flashbacks in comic book form.
Yes.
Then the movie is the movie, right? Obviously, is there a director's cut that adds those cut scenes and everything?
Not a director's cut, but if you get the DVD, you have like a bunch of like bonus deleted scenes and deleted songs and all that stuff. You also have a really great song called Come Up and Try My New Parts, which is Amber Sweet, Paris Hilton full solo song. And she sounds amazing on it. It's very hot. That's hot.
And I don't think
incredible song.
I don't think that's on the cast recording. That's on Spotify. Okay. And
you gotta dig for it.
Spoiler alert.
You gotta dig deep.
Without really spoiling too much, at the very end of the movie, there's sort of like GeneCo continued on because the Roddy kids sort of continue the legacy, and there was supposed to be like a sequel.
It's like the end of a summer camp movie or whatever, where it's like a freeze flame and everything.
What happens to everybody, and they pretty much all survive. And...
Like Luigi grew up to be a lawyer
after stabbing all of his competition. I think the idea of it being a 3-parter kind of came to them when they realized that they were actually being able to make a movie. I don't think that was the original actual idea. Because it was a stage play. It was fairly successful with a really good cult following. Then they got Darren Bousman to direct it. And then we were like, wow, we could do more. I have so much to add to the story. And then they scrapped all of that and then made a different movie series entirely called The Devil's Carnival, which I still have not seen, but has way less of a budget, but still has incredible actors in it, like crazy names that you would not expect them to be.
Well, that was going to be my next sort of question. Like, it's crazy that this had such a cult following. Usually there's some, like, we're in the era now. It's been 15 years since this was a movie, and 25 years since it was written. 20 years since it was written. What year is it? Holy fuck! Almost 25 years. But we're in this era where these kinds of things from early internet and this era, they're being remade or brought back to have sequels. And I was wondering what happened to all these people, because it seemed like there was enough fanfare at the time to at least put out a lower budget thing, or perhaps some sort of sequel or comic book. Was there anything like that at all?
Well, they are still doing it. I think Repo just kind of, from my understanding of seeing how the lore and the fan base kind of played out, I think Repo became bigger than anticipated. And when you have someone who is like, oh, I have all these ideas, and then you have something that people just love and respect and I don't think we want it to change. I don't need more in that storyline. You gave me something crazy and chaotic, and that's all I need it to be. And so those people went, okay, I'm going to make something new. And they did Devil's Carnival. They did it's American Murder song, which I was just listening to recently. I did not know that existed. So they are still creating things. It's just in a different world.
That's cool.
But I think that like trilogy idea was very much like, we're very excited, and then it just got tossed away.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
There is no extended Repo universe. There was a book written in 2009, which is a year after this movie came out, or it was published in 2009, called The Repossession Mambo, which is a similar idea. It's about repossessing hearts after people get heart transplants, and then the character who is the Repo Man ends up having the same thing happen to him, where his heart is getting repossessed, so he basically fights back, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But I don't really remember that movie being all that great. I think I prefer this movie to that movie.
It looks like he went on to do the 2 Devil's Carnival things, and then this American Murder Song, which is a TV series that's the most recent. I'm curious about, have you seen the I'm looking at the IMDb right now for Terrence Zdunich.
Zadunich, I think.
Is the short Zaducci is the short just a condensed short version of this movie, or is it what is it?
For Repo itself?
Yeah, there's
I think they shot a promo for it. So originally
holy shit, Michael Rooker plays the Repo Man in this.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to know something insane?
Yeah, I want to know something insane.
So, the Repo Man, who is Nathan, who is played by Anthony Stewart Head, was not originally supposed to be him. Darren Bousman really wanted Barry, what's-his-face, from Rocky Horror.
Okay.
And then he actually watched the episode of Buffy, that was a musical episode, and watched Anthony Stewart Head in it, and was like, changed my mind. That's the one I want. And later on in Devil's Carnival, Barry actually ended up being in that, and he is still apparently salty for not being cast as Nathan, as the Repo Man. So that's very fun.
I'm sure that Barry Bostwick would have been fine, but I really liked
for Devil's Carnival.
Yeah, I really liked who they picked as the Repo Man because you don't see him
he
in
was
in a
so
ton
good.
of like. He's in a lot of TV, right? You don't see him in movies very often, and when you do, it usually is made for TV movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure he does a lot of Broadway, all that kind of stuff. I would
It's
be
not bad.
shocked now that I've heard him sing so amazingly. He's definitely the best performer in the movie,
Oh, for sure.
in my opinion.
Him and Anthony Head and Bill Moseley. Bill Moseley, I didn't realize till I was doing a deep dive today that he's basically, Rob Zombie has his wife who's his female muse, but Bill Moseley is sort of his man muse because he plays.
He's a
Otis.
horror movie icon.
His
He's a
man
horror
muse.
movie icon, but he's also
You know, a muse
Otis.
doesn't have to have a gender, right?
Okay, well,
You can all be a muse.
I think of sorry, that's on me. That's old antiquated thought patterns. I recognize that I typically would see a muse as a woman because I'm a fucking cisgendered fucking
Because you're a disgusting man.
disgusting
How
man.
dare you?
At any rate, Bill Moseley clearly one of Rob Zombie's muses because he plays Otis in one of the best American trilogies of all time. Maybe not, but he's in he's in House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil Rejects, and what's
Night
the
of the Living
third
Dead.
Yeah, he's a horror
Fortunate Son?
legend.
What's the
He's
third one called? Three
It's-
of Satan.
Yeah, I can't remember. I don't think I've seen
Three
all of
from
them, to be
Hell.
honest.
Yeah, Three from Hell.
And I love horror movies and watch so many of them, but I find Rob Zombie to be a little bit difficult. He's
Just-
hard to get into. His
just as
Halloween
a-
movies were too much for
Just
me.
as a tangent, a little tangent about old Rob Zombie is in the same couple of months I watched.
He goes by Robert Zombie
Robert
now.
Zombie, Robert
Good
J.
old
Zombie.
Bob.
Trying to get
Bob
that
Zombie.
Oscar. Yeah.
I watched
Bob Zombie.
Bombi. I watched fucking House of a Thousand Corpses, which is like it's a thing. It was one of those things I was afraid to watch as a kid, as a teenager, because I was like, it was the scariest shit ever. But the reality is, it's just this weird movie that has a really
goofy.
cool horror 10 minutes at the end. Then I watched The Munsters from 2022 or 2021.
I love the monsters.
Did you watch The Munsters?
The Robert Zombie
The Robert
version.
Zombie
I don't think
Monsters?
I only watched like the old school television show.
Now,
Yeah.
if you're a fan of the old show, you're gonna love the movie.
I don't know if that's necessarily
My
true.
dad loved the Munsters movie, and he loved the Munsters TV
but
show.
that doesn't mean
That is
anything.
science.
What
That is
I'm
our
saying-
data that we're going on.
What
Yeah.
I'm saying about this situation is the Munsters movie is basically the first 75% of Host of a Thousand Corpses, but for kids, is what the Munsters movie is.
I
So
remember
maybe, Cass,
seeing
you'll like
a
it.
trailer. I remember seeing a trailer.
Took 7 tries to get. I took 7 different tries to get through it.
I
put it
remember
on
seeing
for,
a
like,
trailer.
20 minutes and be like,
I remember seeing a trailer for that movie in black and white and thinking, "Oh, cool! This looks really cool." And then seeing the color version of the trailer and being like, "This looks like a big barf."
It's
of
very
shit."
colorful.
So all you have
terrible.
to do then is just like change the settings on your TV
Yeah,
and
to be in
turn
black
all
and
of the
white,
color
yeah.
off
Yeah.
and then watch it in black and white.
It
It
does
looks
have
bad.
It does have Jorge Garcia, who played what's his face on Lost, the big guy on Lost.
Oh, Hugo.
Hugo. He played Hugo, and it was interesting to see him. And it's very much like a cavalcade of Hollywood horror. Hollywood horror.
I mean, I haven't
icons
seen
and
it, so I
stuff.
can't say that it's bad, but it didn't look.
You
good.
might even like it, Steve. It's very like he takes a lot of
Add it to the
artistic
list.
liberties, but it's very true to like it's true to the content. I think he wanted to make a whole franchise out of it, but I think the COVID of it all sort of like hamstring
The movie
them.
has COVID. You're like,
The movie
"Ugh."
has COVID.
This
You
movie
get
feels like it has COVID,
You get
yeah.
brain COVID if you watch it.
Oh no, the worst kind.
Sorry, that's my tangent about how the Munsters is House of a Thousand Corpses for kids.
Beautiful.
Oh, I didn't realize that's what you're.
That
you were
was
trying
my
to say.
We
that was my
connected it.
point. Yeah.
I didn't know that was your thesis. Okay.
Okay. Oh, hey, okay. Back to the movie. I really enjoy the fact that the genetic opera is an opera that they're all singing, but it's also the name of the TV show in the universe, right?
They're
The
basically
thing
like
at the end they go
selling
to.
tickets for this opera the entire time. And then obviously in the last chapter, in the last act of 3, we actually get to see the opera itself. But like the whole thing is like, get your tickets, come hang out with us, get some new implants and have
I
a
got,
good time.
Blind Betty or whatever her name is. What was her name?
Blind Meg.
Blind Meg, yeah.
Blind
Hologram
Whoa,
eyes.
Blind Betty.
She's so blind. Yeah. Blind Betty had a child. Ding a ding. That shit was blind. Ding a ding. Everybody's blind. But I think she was also an interesting character, and she had a good voice as well. I think her moments were pretty good.
She is the original Christine Daae from Phantom of the Opera, who Andrew Lloyd Webber was obsessed with, and Andrew Lloyd Webber is basically the Phantom and hired her to be Christine because he was just so obsessed with her.
Right.
And that's how she started. And then also, this is her first film debut. She's only ever been on Broadway and on stage, and they got her to be.
She was pretty good.
Blind Meg.
It's kind of difficult to go from stage performing to film without, any kind of formal training. And I know this isn't like a huge crazy role, but it's cool that they're paying attention, right? They're like, who would be a very interesting person to have as this specific role, and they picked somebody that is probably the most interesting pick, right?
Yeah. I also think too, that you can really kind of see it when you watch the movie of people who have been on a stage singing and people who have only done film, because if you listen to just the soundtrack of this movie, those people are giving life. They are super committed. They are making acting choices behind the mic. And then when you see it in kind of film world, some of them really nail it, and some of them kind of fall short because they're acting like a film actor, not like a musical stage actor. Yeah. And you can really see it, especially in Anthony playing Nathan. You can see it in Meg. You can see it sometimes, when he really gives it, but I think he's just he was very much committed to a character that he was playing, and he believed it. And I
wasn't he? He was a legit opera singer. I was gonna
a legit opera singer, yeah.
But he
and
was also a legit
Goodfellas.
actor,
a legit actor who's been in Oscar award-winning shit. The thing that I think of is when you see people like Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart be in TV and movies, and they're fucking just killing it.
That's a theater actor
because they're playing to the audience of directors and stagehands that are watching them just do a scene, versus an actor who's went to acting school or took acting lessons and is just very trying to inhabit a character.
Yeah, I mean, the reverse can be said, right? Where there's somebody who has so much experience being on the stage, and then they don't translate as well to close-ups and stuff because they're overacting. They're playing to the back of the theater, so to speak, while they're
you have to know how
acting to a camera, right?
Feel especially that kind of this is so elevated, right? This is camp. This is stakes are high. Everything's crazy. You have to be able to both sell it as if there's a big theater, but also at the same time balance that with there is a camera directly in my face, so I have to take all of this emotion and shrink it, but still have it be like a live wire that is being read through. And I think honestly Anthony Stewart Head specifically in this movie absolutely crushed that.
Cass,
and his vocals are crazy.
Have you ever had to like what's the biggest audience you've played for? Have you ever made
live television?
Oh
yeah, I did the CBC Dorothy show forever ago, so I was on reality TV singing to the masses.
You've never
big audience.
I think you're gonna say singing to the man, singing to the man,
singing to the man, stick it to the man, and sing it to the man.
Now we don't have to dwell on it if you don't want to. I did know that about you. I did because I knew you sang. I looked up your YouTube, and then
the olden times.
It just sort of happened. I didn't want to be a weirdo about it, but I didn't know how to tell you that I knew this about you.
Oh, that's fine.
But I watched your shit, and you're extremely good at singing.
Oh, thank you. I like to sing. It's nice.
What I noticed is if I had done something like you, how old were you? 17 or 18?
17, yeah.
If I had done something like that when I was 17, I wouldn't shut up about it. I would, but I've known you now for a minute, and you don't really talk about it.
No.
Is this just something you want to just sort of we move past it, or do you want to talk about it at all? Because I'm fine. I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, that's fine. I mean, for me, it was a crazy time, and I'm very thankful for it. It was just a whirlwind, and I I think it was my first kind of insight of what fame could look like and what it can do to people. And I like moved to the city right after, and I would have like people recognize me at like my day job or like walking around the mall, and I was like, I love that you love this, but like, what what is going on?
Yeah.
So
I'm just trying to buy some dips and dots and peace over
yeah,
here.
and I was
Let me get
also
my
a
bubble tea.
kid.
Leave me alone. Yeah,
I was
that's
a
true,
kid,
yeah.
and I was, like it was all like all branding, and you got to be cutesy, and you got to be this. Meanwhile, I'm back at home watching Repo, the genetic opera. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's
That's why I was curious about
it's a very cool, interesting thing. I don't really know how to talk about it properly without just
it's
I guess rambling.
No,
I don't know.
it seemed like there might have been some parallels with Blind Mag and Shiloh and like your experience with
for sure.
the industry, and
For sure, it's very much like a big overseeing eye owns you and can make you do whatever you want. That is fame. That is what that is, and it's terrifying. Also, it's interesting you brought that up too with the thing with Blind Meg and Shiloh as well. I always related to Shiloh when I was a kid, obviously because I was a kid. But seeing their mirror of each other, of being like this kind of trapped, caged bird that's just beautiful and stunning and does the thing because they have no choice. But yeah, it's I honestly, like, it is a very simplified version of kind of what that feels like.
That's how I feel about Luigi.
Luigi.
Because I want to stab people so badly all the time.
Listen, we all gotta just hold it in.
Steve, what I've done here is it's called a gotcha moment. It's called a gotcha interview.
Oh shit!
Gotcha.
So that whole thing was just to get me to admit that I want to stab people.
Yes, that's
Call
what
the police.
I also want to say that you guys said the word "I" so many times during that, and every time you said the word "I" wanted to go, "I remember."
Also, I will say, I don't know if you can see because my camera's really bad, but I'm wearing my earrings have eyeballs on them.
Eyeballs on
So
them? Oh my
I
God.
remember.
I remember.
and the hologram eyes and everything. Well, thank
Yeah.
you for giving us some insight on that. I have been
Oh,
I have been curious about it, but I didn't want to be like, I saw it on the TV thing.
You wouldn't be the first person. It is totally okay.
I tried to come up with an organic way to reveal to you that I had seen it, and we don't have to like that's all I want to know. It's not all I want to know. I have a million questions, but I don't want to. I just don't want you to be uncomfortable. And I was
Jason, quit rambling. Good Lord.
Sorry, but I
We're
was
watching a movie. No,
watching this movie. I couldn't help but think about your experience with a very weird parallel. Anyway,
well,
thank
also
you for
on that note,
indulging.
I think that's also why it hit musical theater kids as hard as it did too. Because like, think about like any small town that you're in. If you're in theater or you're in the public eye, even if you're like, like big fish in a small pond, everybody knows everything, and you are kind of under a spotlight, even if it's not on a mass scale. People know who you are. People are watching you all the time. People idolize you for no reason other than the fact that you have a talent of some sort that maybe they would love to have. It's crazy. So of course the musical theater kids would be like, I understand. I understand this.
And then also the big junior high play at the end of the year or high school play at the end of the year. It was always like, oh, you're doing Grease. You're doing Grease again.
Grease Lightning.
And everybody's like,
Mine was The Crucible.
Shit.
And I
But
played the judge.
Could you imagine in high school or whatever, like bringing this play up as like, we want to do Repo.
Oh, that was my dream.
And the
if I
teachers
could
are
have
like-
if I could have done that, I would have been like,
I think there would be a way you could get away with it without it being like, because you could just use red streamers or whatever.
Streamers.
Yeah, make
they
it
do Sweeney
artsy.
Todd. High schools do Sweeney Todd, I'm sure.
Also, there's a lot of parallels between Sweeney Todd and this as well, which is also my other musical hyperfixation.
This is the tale of Sweeney Todd.
If you don't mind, I might go on a mini rant because it is also related. But we were talking about this whole idea of like Shiloh, Blind Meg, caged birds that are whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys only seen the Tim Burton version of Sweeney Todd?
I've seen the Sweeney Todd, that version, and I've seen the Office version.
Hilarious.
You mean where Andy's cell phone keeps going off?
Yes.
It must be a little bird in my pocket.
Yeah. I've silenced the bird.
In the original full Broadway production. If you're familiar with Sweeney, you know the story of Joanna, and she sings this song called Greenfinch and Linnet Bird. And in the Tim Burton version, it's kind of cut and dry, makes sense to the plot, where she is, captured and not allowed to leave her room, and very much almost like a collector's item on a shelf of this really pervy dude. And she sings a song being like, how do you sing? Like I don't understand. You're in a cage, you can't fly, you can't do anything, but you keep singing and you give me faith to still be able to do something. How do you see beauty? In the original, it is just told out flat right by the guy who actually sells her bird that they blind the birds before they put them in the cage, and they can't see. Okay. So they are not singing, they are screaming the entire time. And that is also so poignant to this as well, ties right around to both Shiloh and Blind Meg, both being in that cage. I told you about Marnie's corpse in the house. For people who are listening who don't understand what I'm talking about, that's okay. In the house, there are multiple kind of shots of this kind of glass see-through moment that looks like a portrait and almost like a mannequin behind it.
It should be mentioned that there are holograms of Marnie all through
everywhere. She is like a shrine in every moment of this house, because Nathan is just, he can't deal with his grief.
Because Nathan is insane, guys.
He's insane. He's killing people. He's doing.
Well, just quickly, did you in your synopsis, Steve? Did you mention that there is what happens?
I briefly mentioned it. Yeah, like his wife is pregnant, and he basically has to save one or the other during childbirth. We later, not even that much later, figure out that the owner of GeneCo like secretly poisoned the medicine that he was giving his wife, and that's what actually killed him. Because he was in love
with her originally, and Nathan stole her away from him, and he couldn't handle that.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a real.
He sucks.
He's got that real beta male energy.
He's an incel.
Yeah, he's
kind of an incel. Yeah.
He is.
He basically blames
like full narcissist incel. Yeah. Like I can't have it, burn it to the ground.
But he's also one of those people. Yeah, where he's like, how could someone not want to be with me? I have every piece of wealth. I
get all the livers and hearts you could ever want, baby.
Why would anybody? But then and he can also sing. But then you look at Nathan, who actually cares about humanity and is trying to help people. But
he was a doctor originally, trying to actually do his job and save people.
And then he has to become the night surgeon.
Sorry, Cass. Back to what you were saying. I wanted to just
no, that's perfect.
It. Yeah.
So going off that context, obviously Marnie is poisoned and killed. Nathan becomes the Repo Man under basically the pretense that Roddy will be like, I will tell your daughter that you just saved, that all this happened, or you can work for me. And now you're under my iron fist. So Marnie's body is in that house. It is not talked about in this entire movie. This is only sideways lore.
Yeah, you do see it multiple times.
You see her, but you don't really know that it's actually her. It's kind of like maybe hinted at.
Yeah, I thought it was an artistic choice or something, where it's like he's seeing all these holograms he's put up, but there's this one that is like it's
real.
He's seeing her as real kind of thing, but
like a mannequin.
If you also notice in those shots, whenever you see Marnie, she has a blindfold over her eyes.
I did notice that. Yeah.
If you look at this on the timeline, that is very wishy-washy of the 17 years before. It is, I guess, canonically known that the night that Meg went into surgery to not be blind anymore, and she had a beautiful voice. Roddy wanted him to work for her. She went into surgery. Marnie went into labor. She died. Those eyes were stolen from Marnie and put into Meg, and it's like that extra sense of like, I control you. This was your best friend. You're not gonna leave my grasp.
So important.
Yeah,
that is important, because then it would mean that Nathan, anytime he looked at
Meg,
he'd be seeing the eyes of his true love.
And the way that he also looks at Shiloh too, he always talks about like, you look exactly like her, and I think I made the right decision, but I don't know if I did. Like, he's constantly tormented with like haunting figures.
So wait, are the hologram eyes in the play then, or? Did the mom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. She is like crazy eyes.
Crazy eyes.
Crazy eyes.
That's what
They're
they
so
called me
pretty.
that's what they call me in
They
high
look
school.
like it looks like something that would be in Resident Evil, like the umbrella virus, but in your eyeballs.
Kind of, yeah.
I think
Uh,
that if you go back far enough in this world, the umbrella virus, the T
that's
virus
what happened.
caused
Yeah,
this
this is
fucking movie.
this is
Yeah.
Resident Evil, Raccoon City,
Resident
like
Evil.
like 6 decades later.
Very
It's
much
very.
is that.
We talked about how like the setting for this like whole world is very like like neo goth, cyberpunk, a little steampunk, little Victorian.
Oh
You
yeah,
know?
super
Yeah, it's like
Victorian.
it's
But
got
that's
a
also
gothic
very
feel
goth,
to
right?
it.
Like
Yeah,
those Victorian hints.
it almost looks like something out of something between the Schumacher and Burton Batman movies,
Yeah.
Yeah.
mixed with something that you would see in like almost like a Ninja Turtles movie and
I mentioned the Super Mario.
the Super
Brothers
Mario movie. Yeah,
The
it's got
chaos.
that like grunginess. But it's also got it's like the back alley of Gotham is the whole city basically.
The Narrows.
Everything feels dirty, but with like this beautiful, like soft focus lens.
Yeah.
And lots of neon.
And
That
like the
soft
whole
focus
the whole
lens is used, like Steve mentioned it last night, in porn movies, but it's also used in
Yeah.
like everything that was on Showcase. I think this movie was
True,
shown
it's very
on
showcase.
I just rewatched all the Trailer Park Boys. Oh man, there's lightning outside right now. It's fucking looks great. I rewatched all of Trailer. I'm the Repo Man.
I'm a night surgeon.
Old Canadian
Oh, man.
old Canadian TV from this era had that soft focus on it as well, like the Trailer Park
It's because it's used to hide shittiness. That's what it does. That's what the soft focus is for. It's to hide the seams of things that are not quite
good.
great. And this was in the era where high definition was the norm, so they would just put a soft focus
Well, this
filter on it.
is-
So they're not actually filming
This
it
is minutes
softly.
before, like high def was like 2009. This is
Yeah, it was
moments
right
before
before.
high def.
This was probably filmed in high def.
It was
but
definitely filmed on a
They were like,
digital
"Oh God,
camera."
this looks fucking terrible." So they're like, "We can't have this be HD. We need to soften everything because the costumes are not bad, but they're not great. And like the
No.
more you look at them, you're like, this looks like a Power Rangers
Bad.
villain."
There's a full scene where you can actually see a green screen for a moment where a hologram should be.
Should have been.
It's that bad.
It's like when you
can
watch
I-
TNG and you just see like black gaffer tape on screens to get
Oh,
rid of
for sure.
reflections
It's
of lights
very
and stuff.
sad.
Yeah.
Can I tell you guys a cool story
I love
Yes.
cool
about the
stories.
production of this? So, Darren Lynn Bousman saw this musical off Broadway and fell in love with it and wanted to do it. Talked to the guys and was like, let's go. He had just gotten off of Saw 2, 3, and I think 4. And he tried to pitch it multiple times, including the pilot that maybe you guys have seen online of when they were trying to pitch it. And Lionsgate said, okay, sure. And Darren didn't trust them to fund it. So he funded it 90% out of his own pocket to make
Jeez.
this movie happen, which is crazy. And also why you have like crazy cool CGI things and then also just like insane, really low budget stuff.
Like so bad. You're like, wait a minute.
So bad. He literally was like trying to like get people to see this movie. He was like passing it like posters to like college kids being like, hey, we made this movie. Come, we're doing a film festival. Come see it. And when they were really low on budget, not only did Paris Hilton donate a bunch of her wardrobe to this cast just because she believed in this project so much, but she also made a whole like weird like press moment just to gain money to continue to fund the film.
But like, let's not pretend like this is a well-made indie movie. It's not like we're talking about The Room or Neil Breen or Birdemic.
No, it's
No,
got some,
yeah.
Sharknado.
it's got some
like
stuff
it's better
behind it
than
for
all
sure.
that stuff, you know?
Yeah, I'll never say that it's shit, but what I'm saying is that it's very clearly low budget, right? It feels like something like a very high budget episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I'm not just
Yes.
saying that because
Or like a
Giles is
Doctor
in
Who
it.
in like 20,
Exactly,
like
exactly,
15 or whatever. Like you're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool. CGI
It feels like a
stuff.
high budget, like a two-parter of a series that they got a lot of money for those specific 2 episodes, and they put it all in, and you can
Yeah.
see it. But
Yeah.
you know, there are things that stand out as just odd and awkward, because they even refer to the Zydrate as the glow, but then they added a digital glow to the thing instead of just getting a glow stick from like the dollar store.
And some
you know,
really
swap-
bad digital squibs, some really bad like blood effects, but then also really good
ones.
like
Horror
really
effects,
good
yeah.
like it was a range from bad digital squibs to like good horror practical to
Well, like when
theater,
Paris
but
Hilton's little
then
forehead
also-
is falling down, it looks amazing. Like
It
it's
looks amazing.
seamless.
It was also
it looks
the
great.
last
Yeah.
shot that they filmed. Apparently, that was like their last wrap
but
on
then
set. Was
but
Paris
then that scene
Hilton's
also
face
has
falling off.
theater special effect where when her face falls off, a piece of like meat falls on the ground.
Oh
and
yeah,
then her full
can't
nose,
be prosthetics.
her full nose just exists. When if your face falls off, it's gonna
That's
be like,
coming with it.
You know what I mean? Like this
That's
part right
cartilage.
here. Is
Maybe that would have been too
part of your
horrifying.
face. I don't know.
I think they
it would
didn't
be
have
too
the budget
expensive.
to take out her nose.
We all know it was the budget, guys. I'm just saying.
But
That's-
no,
Like,
it looks
the
very.
thing is,
it
it-
looks very good. They just hide things as best as they can when
Yes.
they're not good.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's going to complain about the nose being there still when, you know, there's a weird CGI bug that looks like shit at
so
the beginning.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
But I think that's a beautiful thing about this movie is that like it brings you so quickly into a world of chaos and not knowing what you're getting into that you don't care.
Yeah.
Like you don't care that it looks bad or that like these
No.
little moments didn't work. It doesn't matter because the things that worked were amazing.
Yeah,
And like were super cool.
generally I think like as we talk about on the show a lot, like we do get a little bit nitpicky sometimes, and the only time we get nitpicky is when the movie is failing at the other job that it's trying to do, which is to
Yeah.
entertain you.
Sneakers.
And you can basically forget logical inconsistency or any kind of poor effect if the
Throw it out the
movie
window.
is doing its job, right? And I remember there's a moment at the end where the repo man is entering into the opera, and Luigi comes up and slashes him in the leg, and it's like a terrible CGI blood effect. But just before that, the repo man comes out and he headbutts one of the like bodyguard women, and she just falls over. And I'm like, because of that headbutt, the bad blood effect, it didn't phase me at all. I wasn't like, oh, I was like, do you see that headbutt? Like all I was
It's
thinking
so
about
cool.
was the headbutt. Yeah.
Yeah, this movie is very much that. Also, I will say I need to talk about Paris Hilton for one more moment because
I think
Floor is
that it's
yours.
appropriate because she is
she's amazing.
weirdly very good in this movie.
She's
She's
like the
very good in this
weirdly also
movie.
the biggest star in this whole thing, I guess. Like technically, I guess Paul
I think in
Sorvino.
certain communities there are
Yeah.
other people who are more famous, but
At
I
the
think
time,
globally,
she had
yeah,
the
at the
I
time
think
she was
globally it
probably.
would be Paris.
She had the most
So-
exposure in 2008 of anybody in this
Well, I think even now, if you were to say anybody's name who was in this movie to like a regular person on the street,
They would know Paris.
they would know
first.
Paris Hilton, but they wouldn't know anybody.
They would know
else, yeah.
Spy Kids, but I didn't know.
But would they know
her
Alexa
name.
Vega
They don't
by
know-
her name, or
yeah,
would they be like, "Oh, Spy
No.
Kids girl"?
See, I've never seen
I've
Spy
never seen
Kids.
them
I don't know
either.
what the
When
fuck.
you guys mentioned it, and
Put
then
that on
I
your
saw
list.
it later.
It's so
In my
good.
head, it was I was thinking of Shark Boy and Lava Girl,
Different, not as good.
a different thing.
Yeah,
which is
very
like,
different.
I
Spy
think I
Kids
have
is
seen
actually
a
good.
Spy Kids. I think I've seen the third one.
Alan Cumming is in it as a villain.
I've
and
seen
he's
the one with
amazing.
Elijah Wood in it, where he
Oh, I think
appears.
That's
like
the good
se-
son,
The
Steve.
second or the third one?
I don't know. They're in a video
Spy
game,
Kids
and then
3D?
and then he shows up at the end, and
Doesn't
he's like,
Alan
"I'm
Cumming
the
play
guy."
like an Iceman in one of them?
I
He
think you're thinking
plays,
of
like, the
Martin
OG
Short in the
villain.
Santa Claus 3.
I think I am actually.
Damn, I got so off topic because I love Alan Cumming.
Sorry, you were talking about Paris
Hilton. Okay, so Paris does an amazing job in this movie. I am to this day very bitter that she is not credited as a producer for this movie. That I think is a mistake because she did so much to make this movie happen. She donated.
It could have been her choice, though. Maybe.
I don't think it was. I think
You never know if she was doing things like donating her wardrobe and all that kind of stuff. It seems like she was more
she
like
believed in it.
She was more like an executive producer
But she should have been at least credited.
She should have been, but maybe she was just like, I don't want people to know that I'm doing this. I just want it to work. She seems like that kind of person.
She's just a good person.
The thing is, as soon as in the movie would have been like a draw.
But okay, hold on. Let me just talk for a second.
Yeah.
The thing about it is that as soon as you get accredited on a film like that, as a producer, as an executive producer, a lot of the time that means that there has to be a certain percentage of the budget that goes towards you. And if she's putting money in and she's giving stuff to the production, like there are ways for you to get around getting paid for things, but the easiest way to just not get paid for it is to not have yourself accredited at all and just be like, I'm not going to be put on the label of it because it doesn't really do much for me. So that could be it. But if that's not the case and I'm completely wrong, then yeah, she totally should have been. Because
she should have been just like I get what you're saying though. Like I think it very much did come from her just genuinely believing in this project. And really
which is
to do
cool.
It.
Every year that goes by, I learn like a new fact about Paris Hilton that I'm like, oh, she actually is like one of the coolest people who's ever existed as a famous person.
During this era, as it turns out, everybody thought that she was this like idiot, like daughter of a
like
mogul,
the little like bimbo blonde
like,
who's like ditzy and that's hot and whatever, and it's like, you're so cool.
In retrospect, what we learn about her is she actually developed this character. She was obviously a nepo baby, so she was able to do this thing, but everything she does was systematic. Everything she does was from an entrepreneur standpoint. She developed this character. It played into the early internet. The sex tape was part of it. Because there were no sex tapes besides like Pamela Anderson existed at the time. But
we shouldn't inflate it to the point that we're like, but that's amazing, because she did do a lot of damage to like society with her shitty persona she created.
For sure.
Think of all of the teenage girls that you knew
right?
during that time where you're like, ugh, these people are insufferable.
Well, literally, because Kim Kardashian was just Paris Hilton's friend, and she did the sex tape route, and now the Kardashians are one of the biggest
an empire.
global names in history, right? So, but Paris Hilton did all kinds of like firsts for being a nepo baby who's famous because they're rich. That idea sort of started with her. She did this dumb character to just.
I mean, Robert Kardashian was O.J. Simpson's attorney. Like,
yeah, gross.
True.
I will also say, like, I think Paris Hilton just played like the full like brothel moment. Like, if you think about why the West worked, the only reason it worked was because of women who knew that they could get power from men doing what they needed to do, and they are the reason they had an economy. Like, they just said, okay, I'm gonna do the stupid thing. I'm not the stupid one.
But I think the fact that like
she
used the power of like her fame that she had essentially created herself. Like, she didn't need to become famous, right? She did it on her own terms, and then she used that power that she had created around her fame to do things like this, to help finance a movie like this. And
that's what I feel like is unfortunate about Nicole Richie. She got trapped in that whirlwind, and she went through all kinds of drug stuff, and she's another nepo baby who could have just like gone into singing or acting because Lionel Richie was her dad, but she got sucked up in this like typhoon of heiress stuff, and she was spit out by the machine. And that's sort of a detriment to the whole thing that Paris was playing into back then. But now when you see Paris talk about it now, she doesn't put the voice on anymore. No, she's just kind of she's real. She's like a comedian, if anything, or a performance artist. Mm-hmm. I've been waiting.
She comes out on stage and she says, "I remember."
I've been waiting for Donald Trump to reveal he was a performance artist this whole time, and it never comes. And he's gonna go. He might get a death sentence. So
it's a normal voice. He comes out and he's like, "Hey, everybody, this is how I actually sound.
I don't talk like this."
He's not like
in the walls.
Yeah.
The walls.
Anyway, sorry, what I wanted to say with Paris Hilton. Sorry, going back. Obviously, she's great, and she did a lot for this movie. Darren, the director, did not want to cast her at all, because he was like, no, it's going to be a publicity thing. People are going to be like, oh, you're just doing it for like the ratings or the shock or whatever. And Paris basically forced herself into that room and was like, no, you're gonna see me. And she walked in like a full costume, went into the sound booth and crushed so hard as Amber Sweet. And Darren was like, okay, well, you have given me
that was
choice.
another
You are
thing
now
with
Amber
Paris
Sweet.
Hilton at
Wait
the
a
time.
minute.
She has a bit of a, what you would consider by today's standards, a failed pop career, but like the thing
I don't know.
is now,
She had some bobs.
true. That's the thing. That's kind of my point. Is every single one of these like it's mostly Disney like child actors that like go on to do other things outside of Disney nowadays, or there's like a
And they
generation
break the
of them.
chains and go.
Well, they're
AWOL.
either they're like McCurdy and their struggle, their whole struggle, or they're like Ariana Grande, who just became a pop princess. They all have degrees of pop career. And Paris Hilton was one of those first people to be like, well, I'm famous, so naturally I can have a hit single. And you're right. She had a couple songs that probably charted. And I think she's been a DJ. You know, she's done the
When did
DJ.
when did she
still
chart?
is, I think, a DJ. She really loves it. And she's good at it.
Wow.
It's crazy.
I don't
but yeah,
remember
I think
any of
that's
this.
also so perfect for her to play Amber. Like who else would play that? Like your
During
dad is like
2008,
a mega corporate monopoly dude who's
Hilton
terrifying. With the Hilton,
Hotel?
yeah, exactly. The whole, empire of that. And you are trying to make your own name for yourself. And also your dad doesn't look at you and like care about you other than like make me money. Like it's perfect. It was like made for her. And she still got to delve into the dark parts of it too, of being like, this is messed up. And
We should try and
my
get her on the
character's messed
show.
up. I will try my best. I'll pull some strings.
You guys know her? Anyone?
This is like when I was
We're
doing,
always 7 degrees away, right?
Yeah.
So
When I was doing Blossom Buddies, we always joked about getting Mayim Bialik or Jenna Von Oy or Joey Lawrence on the show, but it's
People who would probably be way more attainable than actual Paris Hilton.
we figured out we could probably get Michael Stoyanov, who played the druggy son, who played I can't remember his name now.
His name was the druggy son. That's what
The
they
druggy
called
son.
him in the credits.
it's in the credits, yeah.
He's a drug dealer. He's a drug boy.
And the
He
problem
loves
with-
drugs, boy.
The
He's a
problem
drug
with that-
guy.
that's Nelly
Doesn't the
Furtado.
drugs.
The problem with that podcast was
Beautiful.
that Cass, have you ever heard of the television program Blossom?
No,
Okay, there it is.
fill me in.
That's the gap, Jason. You found it. You
found
found the age bracket
It's the
that
exact-
no longer
Connect.
knows. It's
But
Cass.
people who are 30 listen to podcasts.
I barely remember it.
You barely
and, like,
remember it, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm only a couple years younger than Jason.
Blossom was
so.
a sitcom in the mid 90s that was about a precocious young girl who
Some would call her annoying.
she was pretty annoying, and she had a friend that talked fast, and Joey Lawrence was like, "Whoa!"
Oh wait, no, this actually is like
Yeah, you've had probably.
If you
you've
saw
probably
it, you
seen
would
I just
know,
like
so-
had a That's So Raven moment where I was like,
Yeah.
wait,
Wait a
into the
minute.
past.
See, I was
No,
too
that
old to
sounds
watch
very
That's So
familiar.
Raven.
That's so Raven is the other direction cut off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm right in the middle. Just
Yeah.
I liked Smart Guy. Remember Smart Guy?
he's
Remember
a
that
smart
show?
guy.
Yeah.
He's a smart guy. He doesn't do drugs. Don't do drugs. Drugs are bad. Okay. Don't
Don't
do
do
drugs.
it. Addiction is a real thing in
It's
this movie,
true.
guys.
It's
very
all
bad.
addicted to a fucking. It's
Addicted to the
basically-
knife.
it's
Addicted to the knife.
It's an opioid, right? But it comes from your brain, so it's adenocrine, basically.
But like, it's because people take the like purified version of it, and then you take it out of a corpse, and that's like the street version of it, right?
I don't even think that's the case. I think it's always come from that. It's just one makes a big, massive corporation money,
Oh,
and the other
is
one
the
doesn't.
free way to get
But
it.
it's the
Okay.
exact same thing.
Oh, gross. But why is it? Is it just a thing that develops in the brain because of the way the world has crumbled, or
From
Like, is it
what I
related to organ
understand,
failure, which is the disease
Yeah.
everybody gets? Organ
from what I
failure?
understand, it's people who have died from this like specific disease. It's almost like its own antidote once they pass.
Fucking
That's
umbrella
what
virus.
I
it is the T virus?
It's the
guys.
T virus.
T virus.
It has because in Resident Evil 4, they're like they teeter on the edge of it being infected. It makes them superheroes, basically.
yeah.
It's like this town of people who are like halfway.
So it's like a
between-
different strain. It's
Yeah.
the G virus. It's the Ali G
It's
virus.
the Z virus.
And you just like black out and see cool things and don't feel someone cutting into your skin and just being like boopity boop.
And it
Here's
comes
a
in a
new
little
nose.
glass vial.
A little glass
A
vial.
little
A
glass
little glass
vial.
vial. Yeah, no, it's
Well, that was a good Paris Hilton moment. I don't know if you guys have anything else to add about it, but I think we all agree that Paris Hilton is
she did great.
pretty cool. She's a pretty cool person who left a stain on society for a while based on like just young people emulating her, but then we all realized later that it was a big joke.
But like actors pretending to be stupid or like blur that line have happened literally forever. Like James Dean
and there are people who emulate.
It still happens now.
Think about Pauly Shore.
I'm not saying it was all like, think about Andrew Tate and people emulating him. That's like he's clearly playing a character. Like Andrew Tate probably doesn't act that way when he's in a room with regular people.
He's especially toxic though because he weaponized incel culture to the point that there's like women that are like. I
know. I'm saying that's
you've seen that Pearl character, that Pearl.
Oh
woman?
God, yeah.
He's so awful.
Oof.
What I was trying to say is that Paris Hilton is a harmless version of what Andrew Tate is. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but in like almost like a state of irony, and like I think from what I understand of like being in that generation and like seeing Paris when I grew up, and I didn't like her for a really long time because I just thought I was like, I don't get it. Why are you doing this? It was almost like, I think from a point of like irony.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when that mask is seems real enough, people can't actually see the fakeness in it. So they're like, oh, we should just do that because that's popular. It's like, no, this is a joke. It's not good. Like, we should all be not doing this.
And you know, nothing that Paris Hilton did as her character of Paris Hilton was like all that destructive as far as I can remember. I don't remember her saying anything cancelable, but that there's like people now that are getting canceled for stuff that are like, oh yeah, you were actually like a piece of shit and you're just using your character to be able to say things that no one should really ever say. And you're just being like, no, it's a character. I'm like, okay, well, your character's a piece of shit. Cancel your character. Don't do that anymore.
It's like people just don't understand my sense of humor. It's like, because you keep saying racist shit. Like, what are you talking about?
You did blackface once. Yeah.
It's actually just not a joke. It's just not funny.
Yeah.
Explain the punchline.
Just as this
What's the punchline? That you did an Asian accent in a really offensive way? Maybe don't do that again. Yeah.
So funny.
The thing that I just want to, as a side note, I didn't realize that if you flip a Zoom meeting on Twitch, it does show backwards. So.
Oh, everything's backwards right now?
Everything was backwards, but now it's not. So everybody go talk to these guys on Instagram and go to Instagram and look at us go.
Look at us go over here. Yeah, you always want to have it mirrored.
Well, I wanted it mirrored, but it was showing as literally mirrored on Twitch.
Oh,
I know, but if I'm looking in my webcam and I'm going the opposite direction, I will vomit. Like I will. It doesn't work for me.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I have a question for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Being first-time viewers of this entire madness.
Well, I'm technically not first, but the first time was like a dream. So it was like remembering
like lucid dream, like acid trip that was forgotten forever ago.
Did Giles cut someone's guts out in my dream like 10 years ago?
Oh, not Nigel. I called him Nigel like 30 times last night.
It is Giles. I also called him Nigel.
Listen, all the same letters are in there, I think.
It's Giles.
Don't look it up.
Is there anything in this that, like, I guess, like, really stuck out to you guys as, like, moments that you're like, that was really cool, or, like, I didn't get that, or, like,
it's
moments
interesting you ask that, because after my, like, what went well, what even better moment, I wrote a few questions. So let's do this as sort of like a multi-part thing. So your first question...
Let's do this as though it was a little glass vial.
A little glass vial?
A little glass vial.
If someone doesn't cast me in Shiloh after this, I'm going to be very upset.
Well, as long as I get to be the night surgeon.
Yeah, dibs on
Oh my God, you would be so good. We're a little bit too close in age. But I think I just got to like really age up, and I'll try to look very young. It'll be fine.
I could pull off Luigi, I think. I get very mad sometimes.
Very stabby.
So you're asking if anything stuck out.
Yeah. What kind of made you go like, oh, what?
Well,
I have a couple things.
Do you know what I can't stop thinking about? It's a fucking pile of when they open that thing and they go in, it's just bodies, and bodies are like falling in.
How about how he uses a corpse to bash it open? Like
he uses a corpse
battering,
to bash
ramming
it open.
A corpse into like a seal of some sort.
He already got the Zydrate out of it, so it's
it's useless to him now. Yeah, he was that was its purpose at that point.
Also, I don't think, other than the fact that that was clearly styrofoam, I don't think you could just ram a body into like a full
No.
like rock
Stone,
slab
yeah.
and be like, "This works,"
This
and I
is
broke
fine.
in.
Yeah.
That's like some like 3-dicer D&D stunt level.
He rolled a
stuff.
nat 20
Yeah.
on that fucking
Yeah.
bash.
Then you do it.
On his
I guess.
strength check. Yeah.
I don't like. He's clearly done that before, also, which is like kind of disturbing. If he knew that was gonna work with just a wrapped up body.
I did also like that part too because it really sort of shows the disregard that the city has for its dead
And life. It
but
doesn't
it also
matter. It's a product.
it also sort of encapsulates the disparity between the poor and the rich, right? Because there's this endless ocean of graveyards surrounding the island where the city exists, and there are graves and gravestones and people are buried properly, but then you smash open one stone slab and there's just piles and piles of corpses everywhere.
I think
it very much gives me like Night City vibes, like being kind of like on this little island away from everything and like going out to the slums and seeing a little bit of it, but like most of it has been drowned or like thrown away. Like just absolute trash.
I think the biggest shock for me was, even though I knew kind of the conceit of what happens in this movie, one of the biggest shocks is in the newspaper. It just in big bold letter, not newspaper, but in the animated part, the comic book part, it says, "Repoing body parts is legalized," or whatever. That's
the Largos were the ones who basically sold. Sorry, backstory for anybody listening, but they sold this big product through this organ failure, and they were like, we can save you. Then those people became they were in parliament, they could deal whatever they needed to, and they just passed laws to now we can repossess. You've done all of the steps that we needed you to do in order for us to continue to control you.
Yeah.
And
good job, guys.
Throughout the movie, they keep showing these floating billboards, like Final Fantasy style, where they're just these sort of floating ships. It is also sort of like Final Fantasy VII. The city sort of looks like that, Jason.
A little bit like Final Fantasy 13 as well. We can get into it if you'd like.
I don't really want to. I shouldn't have said that.
Final Fantasy 16 is very it's medieval style, but it's very it's all death. It's very R-rated Final Fantasy.
You see these billboards on the sides of these floating sort of, they're not blimps really. They're just sort of, I don't know, like airships. They're floating around. Yeah, and you just screens. You keep seeing "vote yes" with a picture of Largo on there, and you're like, okay, so this is they're continuously being voted in, and that.
I don't think I feel like that's a Putin moment.
Well,
I don't
obviously
think
they're being voted in.
Yeah, this isn't a
that
democracy.
Is just a full monopoly.
It's like it's like an offshoot of a monarchy almost, but it's like it's like Skynet.
It's falsified.
It's like corporate. It's like the corpos have taken over the future.
Well, I guess also in this world, everything is fake.
Yeah.
Everything is fake. So let's pretend to be society and pretend to do our thing. It's all controlled.
Are there other countries we assume this is the United States? Are there other countries, or is Europe just what the fuck are they doing over there?
From my understanding at least of this, I don't think that anywhere else really survived. You kind of see this pan of zombie absolute style. Nothingness and water, and then just bodies everywhere. It's almost
then you go to Hawaii,
the ending of an apocalypse where it's we just happened to manage it in this little way, and this is what we have left. And if there is something else out there, we can't communicate with it, or they don't want to communicate with us.
Or that's what I was gonna say. There could be the other side of the world, like Australia or something, is solar punk. It's the complete opposite, where they're
that'd be cool.
They figured out the way to harness the weather to help them, and
all a bunch of hippies being let's all love each other.
Even the robots are smoking weed with them and being all right, guys, let's go harvest those tomatoes.
Yeah, I love that. That sounds like a much happier movie.
All I know is harvesting organs.
And then one of them glitches and is I remember.
So
that's also such a good hook. I will say, you keep bringing it up, but it is a very good hook.
Well, let's talk about, I guess that was our segment of things that stuck out to us.
Well, I didn't really get to say mine.
Do your thing, Steven.
I think for me, the character design of everybody was just fucking great.
It's like right out of like a
I
comic.
kept
It
being
was
like,
crazy.
whoa, like the whole time. I was like, I didn't know. Like when you said we were gonna do this movie, or when you asked about this movie, and I was like, oh, Jason brought this up a couple weeks ago. I remembered. I said to myself, I remember the poster just stuck out of my brain immediately. I'm like, yeah, it's like a guy and it's red and yellow, and he's the majority of the poster. I remember the poster exactly. And I was like,
It's
but I
an
feel like
aesthetic.
I don't think I've ever seen it. And then, once we started watching it, I was like, I have seen this at some point. But the Repo Man costume is really, really good. It's something that I would love to add to the grimoire in terms of like the illustrations that I've been doing.
So good. Also, him just like hosing it down in his hose
Yeah,
down
yeah.
station after being
Yeah.
covered in blood and like ripping someone's.
But he also has,
guts
like,
out.
a-
That stuck out to me.
This. Oof.
But he also has
That
this like
stuff.
look of like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like, it's like
Yeah.
like when a
This
dog.
is a lot. This is
when, like,
a
a-
lot this time. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
when you see those like
Yeah.
videos of like somebody coming home from work and there's garbage shredded everywhere in their house, and then you go into a room and it's a dog that's like,
It's
like,
that.
I can't
It
even
is
look at you.
that.
Like it
It's
reminded
like
me
they've
of that kind of
almost
feeling.
like gone into a different mode, and then they're like caught in the act. But Nathan is just caught in the act by himself.
But they know that they've done something wrong. Yeah.
Very wrong.
I mean, it is very, like the inspiration for the costume is clear, but there's a reason that that costume is threatening, imposing, and some would argue cool.
I'll be right back.
Because
Okay, bye.
there was a certain political party that militarized themselves and designed all their costumes to be extremely threatening.
Yeah.
Happened at some
You
point in
also
the
see
1930s.
the GeneCo
Yeah,
on the armband.
It's very reminiscent
Yep.
of Nazi culture, which is
very
like,
much.
I don't want to say it's cool, but it's like, it's threatening and it's scary, and that's
As it
why
should
it's,
be, because
yeah,
we're telling
exactly.
a story about someone who is scary and is threatening and is also has been kind of brainwashed in a way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I get
would
that.
also say like it reminds me of, there's like this David Mitchell. He's a British comedian. He used to have a sketch comedy show.
Oh, I know that guy. He's so funny.
Yeah, and he made this sketch with his partner at the time, whose name is escaping me at the moment. But they're both Nazis, and they're like on the front lines of combat, but they're like the generals, and they're wearing like the SS uniforms.
Yeah.
And they're having a conversation about the war, and then all of a sudden one of them's like, "Have you ever noticed that we have skulls and crossbones on our hats?" It's like, and he's like, "What?" And he's like, "We have skulls and crossbones on our hats." And everyone's like, "Yeah, so?" And he's like, "Well, don't you think that maybe indicates that we're the bad guys?"
He's like, no, it's just like
it's
like
just-
fashion.
it's
You're
just-
like,
it's
no, I
just
think
cool.
that's really bad. I think we're doing a bad thing.
I think we might be the bad guys, and like they have this like existential crisis about being the villains of World War II.
So good. Very, very BBC.
Yeah, which is, but it's also very, very true that they did just have skulls and crossbones on their military.
Also,
uniforms.
that's some old school Hugo Boss.
Yeah.
The OG Nazi uniform, Hugo Boss.
So it's funny.
Crazy.
I was listening to all that because I had my headset on, but right after we watched the movie, after you left, Cass, we watched like 20 minutes of Mystery Men, and I've been thinking about how like Mystery Men universe becomes the Repo universe because it's also wacky. It's like the Mask movie fits into this sort of aesthetic, like as a way prequel, and then like we were talking about Joel Schumacher Batman, and
it all seems like it could exist in the same realm for sure.
Yeah.
It's very 90s. Like I think that the aesthetic of this movie has a very 90s vibe to it.
Oh, very much so.
Well,
like
the
again,
lighting
like
and
that's
stuff
why
as well,
I connected to it too. Like I was a young kid who grew up in like the mid 90s. Grew up in like kind of like I wanted to be a goth. I just wasn't allowed, but internally I was a little goth emo punk kid.
Right.
So like
I had a goth phase as well.
Of course, like as we all did in that time, or I guess a fair amount of us did. But yeah, it really like harkened back to why I loved that kind of subculture to begin with. Like it just brings you right back in.
For sure.
And like a comforting weighted blanket hug.
I think the other thing, I would just say the costume design overall is
so
pretty
good.
fantastic. The what's his name, the mask wearing son.
Javi's faces are crazy.
His faces, but also just the fact, we already mentioned it, but the fact that he carries a little vanity mirror around with him at all times, like a Beauty and the Beast style mirror. It's not even like a clutch or something, you know. And like his acting is very much like mirror acting, where he's like shocked, and then every once in a while he'll be like,
oh, dramatic.
Like, look at his mirror. You're like, this is funny. That's a funny thing.
Can I tell you guys a fun fact?
I love fun facts.
I feel like you need to make this a new soundbite for whenever I'm on.
It's a fun fact.
Fun fact. The very first time that you see Javi in this movie, he is wearing his first face.
Yeah.
It is a mold of Darren Lynn Bousman's girlfriend at the time. She did a full like face mold, and that is the first time we see Javi.
I love that kind of stuff. It's like,
it's so cool. I'm like, why? That's so rad.
It's the difference between just like making like a soulless thing, and then like somebody like Dan Harmon will make Community, and just things are happening in the background, and all these intricate things that don't need to connect. You know, in movie making, I feel like there's very soulless movies that are just like, this is the thing that's happening on the screen. But then there's movies.
But there's always behind the scenes. There's always what's actually making it a thing, and they bleed. If they're good, they bleed together because you care about it.
I want to know little tidbits and facts like this, and I think indie film lends itself.
Oh my goodness gracious me.
I think indie film lends itself to this sort of thing, but sometimes you watch an indie film and it's like, okay, you had an agenda. You just wanted to say your thing. You just wanted to say your message and make art. And it doesn't really like, there's no ripple to it. But then something like this, like, it was an uphill battle to get made. You somehow get Paris Hilton to get behind it. The producer on the Saw franchise gets behind it. You get these legit actors to be in it, legit opera singers to be in it.
They cared.
It's coming off the back of it being a very successful like off-Broadway play. I'm surprised. Has it ever traveled? Has it ever come to Toronto? Do you know?
It has not. I would know because I would be the first person to be auditioning. So I would also, if anybody's in Toronto,
if anybody wants to
put on Repo, you let me know immediately.
Because the reason I asked that is because now Hannibal the musical, there's a touring group that's doing it, and that's just.
Jason, it's pronounced Hamilton.
Hamilton the musical. Hannibal the musical, of course, is the Trey Parker and Matt Stone, their first real project. And it's a really
They're
weird.
Crazy. I love them.
It's a really weird musical that like really similar to like this in a lot of ways.
Just off the rails. Insanity.
Just an off the rails thing that they managed to get made because the guy from Trauma. What's the Trauma dude's name? Do you remember what his name is?
His name's Jonathan Troma.
No, it's the fucking
John Smith.
Trauma guy. Here, I'll look up Trauma.
Let's see.
Lloyd Kaufman. Lloyd Kaufman saw these boys. They saw hit their. I'm pretty sure that this predates even Jesus versus Santa Claus. They just made this thing, and Lloyd Kaufman saw it and was like, you know what? Let's put that under the Trauma banner. So at least, instead of like 4 people seeing it, at least 17 people saw it.
Yeah.
That's more than I'll see this episode.
I will say like this. So
no,
with
not.
Repo, like
we'll get like 60 views total.
This movie has become similar in a way to the way that Rocky Horror is done. There are a lot of shadow casts where like they play the movie in the background and you have actors in front of it.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this.
But I don't. Oh yeah. Oh my God. You've never seen Rocky Horror with a shadow cast?
No.
You'll
like it's playing
later,
on the screen, and then there's people acting it out,
and
then
you
also
have
the
entire audience is like calling out all of their little like memes, their little like
throwing
digs at characters.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Let's make a toast,
rice.
and everybody throws toast at the screen.
Yeah,
it's
crazy.
Where's the Room shadow cast? Because that's the only way you're going to get me into theater to see The Room.
The Room. Honestly, I do know there is a place in Toronto that does Rocky Horror every year around Halloween time, and I want to get tickets this year to see it, and it is just shadowcast beautifulness. As
a fan, as a massive
that sounds
fan,
like a hey did you see this one road trip.
It really does.
Or a field trip.
That.
Yeah.
And as a massive fan of professional wrestling, that kind of feels like in the same realm.
Yeah,
as
you
pro
get to be part
wrestling.
of the vibe. Also, I this is a little bit of a side topic, but you guys know that Evil Dead is a musical, right?
I've seen it.
Okay,
There's
thank
a
God.
splash zone.
There is this one.
Yeah.
I was
Okay,
not
cool.
in
I
it,
just didn't want to
but-
have to drop that on you guys and
Mark-
be like,
Mark-
this is a cult musicals are a thing. Evil
One of
Dead is
our
one of them.
our friends, Mark, was in. He played Bruce
Mark
Campbell. in it.
Nosen.
Yeah.
I love Mark.
You play
Yeah.
Ash?
Yeah, we grew up in London together.
Wow.
What? You know Mark?
Yeah, I know.
I
Mark.
know Mark.
Yeah,
Mark
I know.
was on the
I
show.
know,
Mutual
we have
friend
mutual
already?
friends. It's
Oh,
crazy.
shit, yeah.
We've never talked about this.
I
But
didn't
Mark
know.
is lovely.
Yeah.
Do you guys want your
Um,
own show on the Hey Did You See This One network where you talk
Well, we'll
about
get
musicals?
Mark. Mark's both of our friends. You
Oh
probably
my
do
god,
with
I
us.
haven't seen him in like over probably a decade. He's lovely though.
That's
100%.
crazy. What is this
Yeah.
world?
I don't know. We're all connected.
Everything's connected. I remember.
So- Why not-
sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna ask if you guys had a favorite song.
I was literally about to ask the same question.
Whoa. One of you guys should have just went instead of giving each other the floor like that.
I'm very Canadian.
Yeah.
No, you go first. No, I'm sorry. You go first.
But
Well, how
in the
about
way-
I go first?
but in the
It's the
way
one where
that-
he goes,
yeah.
I
I
remember,
remember.
which is like
Some
5
good
different
dissonance.
songs. He does that a bunch of times.
Yes. Very specifically in Night Surgeon.
My
Yeah.
favorite song in the whole shit is Chase the Morning. Because
Oh, Chase the Morning. So
because the
good.
hologram part is, we talked about this last night, it feels like very much a hook from a 90s like trance dance music song, but also the song is weird and haunting, and it's a very pivotal moment in the story. It's one of the big reveals of the movie.
Yeah.
It
And
definitely
I
does feel like one of
listened-
those like la da da dee da da da.
Yeah.
La da dee
That's
da da.
da dee da 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 da.
That was 3
Be
different
my
songs.
lover, gonna be my lover.
Be my lover, she is homeless. And also Chase the Morning is the song that made me go, what? The most? And then today I listened to that song the most, because I listened to the
Oh, it's
cast
stunning.
recording like pretty much all afternoon. My cousin hates 17. 17 is like my second favorite song, because it reminds me, it twofold reminds me of like rebellion and being literally being 17, but also it's like a pretty good boppy like pop punk song.
It gives me kind of like Avril Lavigne vibes.
Yeah.
And
She's
I-
dressed like Avril Lavigne suddenly. And that's
You're
another
like,
standout
"Yay,
moment
let's
in the
go."
movie for me, because apropos of nothing, seemingly.
Imagine they got Adam Levine to play her in a version of this.
No, Avril Lavigne.
Oh,
Just
They have Joan
Adam
Jett
Levine.
and Adam Levine in the
Yeah,
background of
and then
17.
Joan Jett is part of that segment. So
Crazy.
like,
How did they get her? I don't know. It's crazy.
they're like, do you want to play the guitar in this movie? And she was like, yeah, I want to play the guitar in this movie.
And it's like the most simple lick of all time. Dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
dun, 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 over and over. She's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I got this. I'm a professional. I can do that. So good. For no reason.
I think at that point I said Repo, the Joan Jett opera or something. What did I say?
Joan Jusical? No.
Oh my
Joan-
God,
Joan
Jason.
Etic. You said the
It's a
Joan.
jukebox opera.
The Joan Etic.
That's what I said. Yeah,
Op Joan.
the Joan Etic opera. Yeah,
I wrote it
Uh,
down, but I haven't gotten to that part of my notes yet.
that's all right. I couldn't even remember what I said. I said a lot of random stuff last night. I don't remember it.
I say a lot of things. Some of them are true. Most of them are lies.
Some of them are I remember, but I think my favorite one is probably the Zytrate goes in a little glass vial. But
It is
like,
very
It's
good.
very
that's just because
catchy.
it's super catchy, and I like when people say things and then someone repeats them right
Call and
afterwards, because
response,
it's it's
a good
it's-
call and answer.
Yeah. because it
And
feels
in-
like you're part of something.
In that same song, what
And
I
you can
like,
predict what's going to happen next in the song, so you're singing along and you don't even know it.
what I
Yeah.
like in that song though is that the first one is like Zydrate comes in a little glass vial, a little glass vial, a little glass vial, and then they do it again a couple stanzas later.
Yeah.
And he doesn't say it back to her for the third time. The crowd says it. It's just the chorus, but the chorus says it in like a, yeah, we just fucking said
We
the thing.
know, yeah.
And I really, because that's the joke in my head, that they do this really catchy thing, but it's like I think that's why the meme is so prevalent. It's because it's such a dumb Such a
It's
dumb.
so
There's a good
silly.
moment in it where he says, and that's what gets you ready for the surgery. And then he says it
Surgery.
to himself. Like no one else says it, and he's like,
Surgery.
surgery. Like he's like, I'm
can't
going to prefer the surgery.
surgery.
Yeah.
Surgery.
I also I liked sort of the implications of that whole sequence visually, because she is addicted to the knife. Addicted to the what? Addicted to the knife. And she has these, or I can't tell if it's him or her that's having these visions of them like having sex while he's performing a surgery on her, which
That
is like
whole
pretty intense.
scene is amazing because it's actually part of what was filmed for Come Up and Try My New Parts, which was not included in the movie, not included on the soundtrack. Paris actually sounds amazing on that track.
Because when
but it does kind of mesh the world between the kind of I don't know, like hinted at they are together and doing this whole drug deal, and it's like very sexual. That song itself is like solidifying that, and a lot of the shots from that video are included in Zydrate Anatomy when she's like having flashbacks of like them being like super intimate.
So like one of the main issues that I have with musicals in general is that like metaphor and allegory, they don't necessarily always work because people are singing about what they're feeling and thinking constantly. So metaphor and allegory are sort of like, they can still exist. I'm not saying that they're impossible, but a lot of the time you're being told exactly what people are thinking because they're expelling their emotions through song, right? So
it's the only way they can express themselves in that moment is like, I've tried everything else and now I only can sing it. Like that's the mentality of a musical theater person.
So like
I've tried everything else.
Yeah, the metaphor comes in these visual moments, right? So that to me, that's like, she is addicted to the knife, but she's addicted to surgery, but he's the one performing the surgery. So when he's performing surgery to her, he's technically like making love to her because that's like what she feels when she's having the surgery, right?
And also like, I will say like gives like very kind of grooming vibes as well of like,
oh god, that whole sequence
it's weird. Like it's uncomfortable, right? Like you have this person who has power over someone who is sheltered, who is a Nepo baby, who doesn't know the outside world, who only needs to like do all these things to like feel anything.
But then he's also doing
and then you have someone being like, come here, baby, I got you. Also, you want these drugs? Also, like, you're going to look great after this. You're like, this is really messed up. Like, this is bad. I don't love this.
But he's also doing it in front of a 17-year-old who's just stumbled into the street for the first time. And then you also have this other person who looks like, what's her name from Arrested Development? Like the girlfriend of
oh my God,
George Michael.
Anne?
Anne, yeah, she looks like Anne.
I'm gonna call her Egg.
And she comes out and she's like, I got my first taste of Zydrate at 13, and then I started turning tricks like a month later or something, and you're like, ugh. And then she goes up and like hugs the grave robber, and you're like, oh god, the grave robber is the grossest character out of everybody, and everyone's gross. Yeah. So
it's a bad world out there.
Yeah, that whole sequence and song, though it is the catchiest, is also like the most disturbing. Like everything that they're singing about is just actually opening up the vile nature of whatever the fuck this city is called. The little glass vial that exists inside the vile nature of this horrifying city.
And I also feel like this whole movie is just like exposition almost until like the final act. Like it just is feeding you information. All of the songs have so many lyrics. If you actually look at it from a musical perspective, it's not great, but it is very catchy, and it has a lot of things that it wants to say, and I love that.
And just on that point about the acts, like it's three acts of like the standard makeup of a story, but it's 2 acts because it's all of this. And then literally he's like I think he's
then it's the opera.
I think he's doing the newspaper trope even where he's like, well, stay tuned. He literally is like, stay tuned.
That was my other great joke that I made last time where I'm like, oh my god, this guy's such a boomer. He's getting all his news from the newspaper.
And it's like 2544.
This guy doesn't have an iPad.
Yeah. What is happening? He's a grave robber. I don't know. But I
It's
like
true.
the fact that
It's an old newspaper as well. He found it in a coffin.
Found it in
it's
a
from
body.
like
Yeah.
50 years ago. He's actually in the
Yeah.
future. This
He
is
was trying
all
to dig up a
last
corpse, but he
year's news.
accidentally dug up a time capsule.
Whoopsie.
Yeah.
No, I like the fact that because they have to, they are trying to explain so many things in this movie very quickly. I like the fact that we get to see the grungy level of the outside world through Shiloh's eyes, which is why we have that call and answer, right? Of he's like, this is life. She's like, what are you talking about? I have been in a dollhouse my whole life, and I just got outside, and I think I'm gonna pass out right now because I don't think I'm allowed to be here, and I can't breathe. And he's
Also, I
like,
didn't
yeah,
eat
this
my
is
blue rocks
gross.
today.
And she's like, what?
And I only have one wig, and it's getting really itchy. I need
No,
to
she
have my
has the
night
blue
wig.
one, and she never wears it.
No,
And
she
I'm
only has
still
one with
upset.
her. She doesn't
True.
have a backpack full of wigs.
Remember
She
at the
should.
beginning of the movie, Steve, before it was revealed that she was bald, you were like, you thought the special effects were so bad that she adjusted her
She's
Well,
wig.
because she like
adjusting her
adjusts her
wig.
wig
In
at
the
one point. I'm
movie.
like, she just adjusted her wig.
Like,
oh
we
my
didn't
God.
see that. You think we're dumb. And you're like, oh, wait, no, she's bald.
Oh,
Okay,
she's got no
got
hair.
it.
Why does she
Yeah.
have eyebrows?
Yeah. It's a blood disease.
It's
I
a
don't know
blood
how this works.
disease.
Yeah. Don't you know
Also-
that like blood diseases don't affect your eyebrows?
I will confirm that, you know how we were talking last night about like Nathan gives her little like pills in her water.
Mhm.
And I was like, I think those are those old school like 2000s mints that were just little pills.
Yeah.
That's confirmed. They were
Or-
mints.
That's
Oh,
what
was
they
it?
were.
Yeah,
I
it
thought
was the
maybe
exact
like the
thing.
way it gives off bubbles, I thought maybe it was just like crushed up like antacids or
Alka-Seltzer.
something. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No, it's those little minty ball
Wow.
things.
I
You
loved
called
those.
that.
I loved those.
I lived
loved
in this time.
Yeah, you're like,
Doritos,
I am
3Ds. I loved Orbits.
The Repo man. I'm the night surgeon.
I loved Fruit by the Foot.
So good.
Ring pops, Tamagotchis. Wow.
Wow, Tamagotchis.
I will say
Wow.
though, I think like one of my absolute favorites. I have a lot of favorites in the soundtrack. Night
I was gonna
Surgeon is
ask you
definitely
what your
up there.
favorite song is, yeah.
I want to talk about Kramaja, but it's not my favorite. But God, that song is amazing. I think in order for me, it is Night Surgeon. We started this opera shit. Legal Assassin, and
So you like all of the songs the same? All of the songs are your favorite
It's-
song.
well, no, like I think there's like 58 tracks
There's a
in this
lot,
entire.
yeah.
It's a lot of music. But I specifically wanted to talk about We Started This Opera Shit because that song is such a bop. If you listen to that solo from the rest of everything, it is chaos. It has such a driving beat to it, and it isn't trying to tell you too much. It is just there to be a spectacle. And when you're faced with a show that is just pounded and pounded by lyrics and lyrics and lyrics and poetry and trying to get something across, it's like a breath of fresh air to be like, oh, we're in for a show now. Like, get up, have
Yeah.
fun, tell your story about your genetics. That's so cool. It's very rad.
Is that the
I
one
did
with the
also
ladies
like-
moaning in it?
Yeah, they had all the gen turns, and they
Yeah.
were like,
Gen
gen turns. They were like, ooh,
Yeah.
spicy.
That
Yeah.
one's called Lawn Moaners.
I
I think I
love
also
that song though. It's good.
No, it is good. I also like the one where Blind Mag is singing just before she dies. It's a
Like in
pretty good
her,
one, too.
it's like Italian or
Spoilers.
something or Latin.
Can I tell you guys what the lyrics are for that?
Yeah, actually, you were gonna. This was your homework. You were gonna tell us about
Yes.
a bird trying to escape its cage. I think is what you sort of alluded to.
Yes. So obviously, Sarah Brightman is a trained opera singer and is amazing. And I love that they gave her a full moment. I wish there was a way that it was a bit more easily translated to the audience so we could have picked up. Oh, sorry, that's my cat's tail. We could have picked up on the message she was trying to say. But it's basically the same kind of chorus that repeats. So this is the whole thing. I will try to be quick with it. The story is, a long time ago, a fatal bird named Kramaja met the arrow of an archer while flying. Along the lava coast for years, thinking it was being chased, it escaped the arrow. Kramaja, Kramaja, why don't you face danger? The arrow was attached to its wing and it flew, trying to shake it off. Pulling the arrow, others get wounded because of me. because of me. And then she says, "Come take my eyes," in English, "I would rather be blind." And it's this whole thing of like, she has been this spokesperson, this sponsor for so long because she has no choice but to be that. And watching everybody around her just fall into the same trap that she did. I think the main thing with Meg that makes me really, really connect with her and connect her to Shiloh is when she first sees her in this like kind of carnival camp when Shiloh gets away. And she has this moment and looks her dead in the eyes, not knowing that she was a person, did not think she survived the entire ordeal with Marty dying. And Roddy the entire time is being like, "Oh, she was a beautiful singer and I helped her. I could help you too." And she just has this, like, you can see almost like her gears turning of a backlog of being like, please don't do this. Don't listen to this man, but I can't say anything. And the only way she can say it is being like, "I hope someone hears this. Here's my eyeballs."
And then rips her own eyes out of her head.
And
then looks at the audience. And then she says, "I got my eye on you." And she flicks them in the audience and everybody screams. And then she does the thing that I have been asking to happen the entire movie.
Because in these sorts of movies...
fall on the fence.
Yeah, in these sorts of movies, there's very gothic fences everywhere. Every Addams family has it. There's a very great scene in the American Horror Story about I think it's called Coven. There's a witch's coven.
I love the Coven season.
I like the first Coven season. The End of the World season, I had kind of fallen off.
I watched only the OG, I think.
Yeah, but
I do think though, like at least
falling on a fence like that is
at least 2 times before they showed them. I'm like, somebody's gonna fall on that fence, guys.
Like
somebody's
it's
gonna fall on that
literally
fence.
The scene before you were.
And then I think Jason said, like, because she was singing and there was one of those fences on the opera stage, Jason was like, "Is she gonna fall on that fence?"
The entire time I was literally just like biting my lip, being like, "Don't say anything.
Yeah.
Let them experience this. This is amazing."
You'd be like, "Don't say anything."
You'll learn this about me, Kaz, is I fucking hate spoilers in like an almost like, I don't want to use any inappropriate words, but in an almost OCD kind of a way. It's a weird idiosyncrasy that I have about spoilers. And
this hits you different.
We opened up the floor for you to spoil so many things for us last night because me and Steve are like also the kind of people that are like calling. Me and my wife do it too. Like we're calling shots during the movie. Like we're making predictions.
I remember me and Jason went to go see the new Avatar, and I leaned over it to him at like the very beginning of the movie, and I was like, "One of these 2 fucking kids is dead for sure."
Yeah,
you're like,
"It's so good." And even though I'm constantly like making predictions, I also don't want the spoilers to happen. So thank you for.
But also, there's like a certain thing to recognizing storytelling, right?
Yes.
So like Cass, I turned to you last night and I was like, I think I've figured out what's going on.
Oh, in like the first 15 minutes, you called like the mega twist at the end, and I was like, I don't know. I don't think that's it.
You were like pulling my wig off and being like, "You're wrong." And I was like, "Oh," because he was singing about what have I done? What am I doing? I'm like, he's singing about he's doing something wrong. So he's clearly doing something bad. So it's like, okay, and then it goes to the comic book explanation of what he did wrong, but that doesn't explain what he's doing now. So, if you just look at like storytelling in general, and it is a very much like I don't want to call it paint by numbers, but it's like it's a simple story that you've heard a million times before,
just painted in a very cool, rad light.
Yeah, and so like logically to me, I'm like, how are they going to make the father and the daughter hate each other? It's going to be some sort of twist where he's doing something to keep her here against her own will, and the only thing that he's doing is giving her medicine and telling her that she's sick. So I'm like, okay, so he's keeping her sick so that she thinks she needs to stay here.
And then right after that, you were like, wow, I think like that's the bad thing about him. And then he's like, evil layer.
Yeah, but also I rip people's guts
You're like,
out.
oh, maybe that's the bad thing.
As soon as he went up to the fireplace and put his hands on it, and it kind of vibrated a little bit, like it moved slightly, and I was like, is that going to be a door? It was a door. I remember that I put a secret laboratory behind my fireplace.
We are coming up against it a little bit. I'm gonna, since it's our maiden voyage with me and Steve as the hosts, and we're in our special guest era. And since this is such a special movie to you, Cass, I do want to. I'm gonna give some liberties. We're gonna go a little long, probably.
Well,
I do.
Jason, we're gonna call you the Statue of Liberties for
I'm
the
the
rest of the night.
statute of limitations.
Jason, didn't you say you had questions for us as well?
We kind of went through them just organically, but I do have a question about that. We talked a little bit about what would it look like. Is it necessary to remake this? What would it look like as a remake?
I think it'd be sick.
Would it be a
if
movie?
They had a super high budget. That'd be
as
cool.
We've been talking about it, a television show.
For me,
would be cool
as like the.
I don't know if they need that, but
you're like a 6-part miniseries that tells all of the story.
But then would it be a musical the whole time?
More of the story for sure. I wish it was longer. I wish they didn't have to kind of make the cuts that they had to and kind of fill people in as quickly as they could to make it a movie. I would like it to be longer, but I don't know if I would want it to be higher budget. I think I would like it to be clean, but I think part of what makes this movie so good, it's also very similar to Rocky Horror Picture Show, is that it is kind of crazy that you use this set in weird ways, and we dive into the world with you. It's like, it gives me like Doctor Who vibes when they had like Daleks that were just like made out of cardboard and you still believed it.
The pacing of the whole thing is very, like, I've seen a lot.
It's a lot.
I've seen a lot of musicals now. Okay, because I've moved to Toronto. I didn't have this as a kid. We had Neptune Theater, and you got to see like Scrooge.
Oh, the Neptune! I know the Neptune.
You got to see like Scrooge and The Night Before Christmas, and mostly Christmas plays apparently.
Yeah. We do one play a year.
This White Christmas.
Old Scrooge only opens the theater once a year on Christmas Eve.
Less a movie and more a stage production in movie form. But then you have like Hamilton on Disney, which is just the stage production.
I would love to see this as an actual like full like live done show. If I could get like a really crazy high budget stage version that is filmed in like that kind of one shot Hamilton where you get Meg and you see like this crazy like laser show behind her and like really cool screens behind that playing Marnie's image. That's so
the
cool.
Hamilton fucking moving disc in the middle.
Yeah,
with all
and like
their,
use the stage. It's made for that.
But then
I think in order to make it a high budget movie, you would have to simplify it. You would have to edit and make more of a linear sense.
I think
which is also cool, but
I think like
different.
A Sweeney Todd or like for better or for worse for like a Cats would Cats sucks, but it is a good way. It sucked, but it was a good way to do a musical in movie form. This and Cats actually share a lot of like similarities in their sorry, but I know Cats is terrible. Cats is a stage
the play. Dancer is amazing. Good performers. The cast that they always have for Cats is good.
I will
never diss that, but the show is bad.
I saw Cats, like the live Cats, and it's equally puzzling. Like it's Andrew Lloyd Webber was doing his cocaine years. Or something.
He just wanted to fuck a cat.
He nailed it with like Jesus Christ Superstar and Evita and Phantom, and he did a lot of good stuff. Shit. And then he also had a bunch of people dressed up in race cars on rollerblades in that one
so he
musical.
Also
and
like they
like broke legs and stuff trying to like rip around the stage while singing at high velocity.
But then on top of that, we threw around like Sam Raimi, which would be a good person to do this as like a movie, or like Tim Burton to do this as like a movie. But
Sam Raimi could crush this.
But you do have to sort of realize that there are kind of two kinds of musicals even. There's like the kind of musical where they sing everything that they're saying in sort of a stanza, but sometimes not. And then we break into a full number. But then there's also the musicals where it's like, hello, we are talking to each other as normal people. And then suddenly we break into a song. So like, I think you have to like keep this as the one where they're singing the whole time. So I guess the TV
it has
show
to be.
It's
an opera, right? Like it's the whole thing is supposed to be that it is sung from beginning to end, which is what an opera is.
I
There
think
is
there's
no
only,
break,
like,
there is
5
no dialogue.
There's like 5 parts in the whole movie where they're not singing something, and it's usually like the tapering at the end of a scene where like
they say something.
where Giles be walking away and he's like, I can't do this job anymore. And he like walks away, and then what's his name is like,
Nathan,
nobody
no one
walks away from me.
me.
But like imagine he was like, me. You kind of want that.
I didn't realize that was like the
Could be good.
definition. So an opera typically is where they
Is
sing
sung
every single
through.
thing, and a
Yes.
musical can be an opera, but also can be like Grease, where there's scenes where they're just talking to each other.
Which is why, if you look at Jesus Christ Superstar,
last night? Well, yeah, let me tell you about
I'm
Did you
creepy,
borderline
and
sexually
I'm really
assault that
creepy,
girl or
don't
what?
trust me.
So I spent 45 minutes combing my hair, and then Scooby Dooby, Squibbity Doo.
Exactly that. If you look at like Jesus Christ Superstar, that is a rock opera.
Yeah.
The entire thing is sung from
I
beginning
saw
to
Rock
end.
of Ages. I saw the Rock
Oh,
of
I
Ages.
love-
Yeah.
Wait, did you watch the movie?
I haven't seen the movie. I've only
Don't
seen
do
the,
it.
like,
Only
lower-
see it live.
It was a low budget, like Rock of Ages 2, where it was like up and coming people doing it at a
I love
smaller
that.
theater in Toronto, and it was.
I
very...
watched it on Broadway, and it was when
You
I went.
saw Rock of Ages
I did.
on Broadway.
I did.
Holy
It was
shit.
the one time I've ever been to New York, and it was the original cast. And it was the one show that I almost watched twice in the week that I was there. It
Wow.
was so good. It was so good and
the
very
version
camp.
I saw wasn't so good, but the narrator character, that's who fucking
Lanny, or Lonnie?
Yeah, Lonnie.
That's a
who
very
Lonnie
like
reminds
Jack
me of.
Black kind
Yeah.
of energy character. That's all you need to drive the entire thing, honestly.
We knew Lonnie. Lonnie was a friend of my wife
Cool.
Madison's friend from I was at his wedding and stuff.
Rad.
I knew this person, and it was crazy to see. Like, that's another whole layer when you know somebody in a
You're like,
musical stage
"How
play.
was
Yeah,
this?" Yeah. Rad.
the
Very
production
cool, very
was it had some issues.
Yeah. That's fair. But cool.
You know what sucks?
Should I talk now?
Well, you know what
You
sucked?
should talk,
I
Steven.
saw
I'm so
Spamwa at
sorry. I've been
Stratford
talking
this year.
so much. It's just this is my baby and I can't stop.
No, I just
So-
don't have anything to add because I haven't seen any of those shows you guys were talking about.
Because Steve, you
Ooh,
have
listen
a
to the
thing
soundtrack. The original Broadway soundtrack is also like just a bop to put on in the background.
Rock
They
of Ages?
Crush it. Yeah,
Okay,
it's very good.
it's good, but it's all like it's all the songs from the '80s that you know. It's
Yeah.
all like "Don't Stop Believing" over and over.
This must be just like
Domo
living
arigato,
in
Mr. Roboto.
They need
No?
to incorporate a Styx Domo Arigato Mr. Roboto into a. Yeah. So I've been kind of going through my notes.
Cool.
Here are the other questions I had. Favorite tracks, favorite performance.
Yes.
Do you have a
Oh
favorite
God,
performance?
100%.
Ooh.
The Night Surgeon.
Yeah,
It's the best.
I think Anthony Stewart had really, really knocked this out of the park. I think without him being Nathan, being Repo, I don't know if it would have worked, honestly.
Like a
I think
different
they
thing
really
with
casted
anybody
him
else.
perfectly.
I mean, I already liked him before
Oh, yeah.
watching this. Like, there are times where sometimes I'll wake up and I'll stretch and then I'll look at my ceiling for a minute and then I'll say, previously on Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
That was really good.
I'll do that sometimes. I don't know why, because I think I am living in a Buffy episode all the time, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Maybe.
I think that his performance, I knew that he was a good singer because of that episode of Buffy, but I didn't know how good of a singer he was, and that
He has such control over
because
his
it's also
voice.
like a sexy voice too. It's not just like a good singing voice. It's like
I'll be back in a moment.
It's an erotic sort of. It has like an erotic quality to it, right? Like
Well,
it's.
This
It's
is
hot.
also, I will say, like, as someone who has many friends of mine who are not musical theater people, I will show them things like this because when I watch musical theater, I don't need someone to sound perfect. I don't need
Right.
them to sound like a beautiful little angel, a little bird, a little whatever. Like, I think Anthony Stewart Head's voice in this is so perfect because he's not afraid to crack. He's not afraid to be like graveled and like in this kind
he
of
like
space.
growls sometimes. It's so
brilliant.
good.
It's a character choice, and I'm like, I would much rather listen to this than someone trying to sing this like straight in a musical version. It's very much actor first, and he just happens to have an incredible voice to accompany it.
Yeah, that point kind of reminds me of the Tim Burton Sweeney Todd, where
Yeah,
the performances are good, but they're not great, and there are times where you're kind of like, was Johnny Depp the best choice for this? Like, I don't think that he was a bad singer, but I don't think that he was the best.
well, he also wasn't a singer before that.
That's true,
He
and that's
was
why
only
I'm like,
I
was
just
he the
wanna play
best
guitar.
choice? Like,
But I also liked, like, I love Sweeney, and Sweeney is usually done as like a very like beautiful, robust voice. Like, I mean, Josh Groban is playing him right now on Broadway, which I would love to see. Very
I've seen
badly.
little clips of that on TikTok.
It's very good. It looks very, very good. But I kind of like the fact that if you're going to make it a film and not a stage production, get someone who can act it first.
Yeah,
I would rather you not hit the note and commit than hit the note and I don't believe you.
But I would also
any
say
day.
get somebody who can do what Tim Burton did, which is that every single one of the sets in that movie feels like it's a stage play set, but
Yeah.
in a way that you like can navigate it and believe that it's three-dimensional and that it's a real space, but it is like
A stage.
it's larger than
It
life.
still feels
right?
like a dollhouse, right? Like when you
Yeah.
look at sets on a stage, it's like all of these things are cut in half so we can see inside of it.
Exactly. And I think that was
yeah.
one thing that was lacking in this movie for me was the set design. It wasn't perfect. There were some good
not
sets,
great.
but it wasn't uniform across the board, right? Like I
Which
didn't
is
think
crazy
that
because it was all done on one lot. Like everything was
Yeah,
done
but
in,
it's
like
like
this
they
little
probably
tiny...
they're probably like put a lot of money into that alley. Well, and
Yeah.
you
And
know
the
you can make an
CGI.
alley. Yeah, and you can also pump an alley full of smoke, and there you go.
Do
It
you
looks
guys
way
want to
better.
know? You guys want to know something about me? I
Okay.
fucking don't even recognize any CGI in this movie. I like maybe
What?
like touch-ups and stuff, but like
Not like the
What about that
overwhelming,
little
like
bug
the
at the
zoom
beginning?
in of like all
Yeah,
of
that bug.
Or the
GeneCo
whole city.
City.
Yeah.
like that, but like yeah, like big,
It was actually pretty well done though.
big
Like it,
swaths of Earth and like the city, sure, but like in actual scenes, it was a lot of just like really practical moments. There was no
I think-
there was no gore that was not practical.
Well, I
right?
mean,
I think the only one is like the stab from Luigi's knife at the very end where he.
the eye blood was fake.
That's
The eye
those
blood
are
was fake.
yeah, that's true. But those are like a programmed. Those are called digital squibs, and those are like a thing that are like you just get.
Okay, but your point is that there was no CG and there's tons.
No, my point
What are you
wasn't
trying to say
that
here?
there's no CG. It's that it didn't stick out to me like The Fifth Element, for instance.
But that's
is a
because you're
fantastic
entertained by it,
film.
right?
Well, yeah, it's the theater of the mind, right? Like
Yeah.
once you're in the zone and you realize kind of a little bit
I
what
guess
you're in for, you're just like, okay, throw anything at me.
What
I'm
I should
in.
say
I'm
is
sold.
there was no CGI in this movie that like fucking took me out of it. I will once
Got
again
it.
bring up The Fifth Element, which is a fantastic movie.
I love that movie.
But I saw it for the first time, literally in last year, and I couldn't get over the like.
Not a great time to watch it when you're,
No.
when you are surrounded by Marvel movies
Yeah.
for like a decade that
On a
have good CGI in
4K
it.
fucking giant TV, also like, yeah. So it wasn't.
You know, what would have been a great time for you to watch that movie
in 1996
1999.
or whatever, 1998, whenever it came out.
Yeah.
When I get a time machine, I'll go back.
Thank you.
Tell my younger self to be like,
But also there wasn't a moment in this movie where somebody shakes their head and they're an alien and then it turns into a human head. Like there's nothing like that in this movie,
No.
right? Like
It's
that's
like-
why the CGI wasn't overwhelming, because there was no overwhelming CGI where you're confronted with a person who's interacting with a full CGI character, right?
it's still very based in reality. It's like the ultimate absurdism based in that could happen tomorrow. It's like almost like a Black Mirror episode.
But I think the point,
Like
the
I
point
said.
that me and Casper are kind of making about the difference between something like Tim Burton directing Sweeney Todd and this movie, where obviously they have vastly different budgets with whole different powerhouses behind them in terms to get them made, is that Tim Burton can sit there and wait until the perfect set that he wants to be made for a specific scene can be made perfectly, whereas this is like, they've got a budget. They have to make a
It was
bedroom
like
for a little girl.
50,000 or something. That might be a lie, but
I
think
left
it's
the room for a second, but when I
$50,000.
left, we were kind of still talking about who would be best to direct. I think Tim Burton over Sam Raimi, just because I'd rather see like a Sweeney Todd version.
Like where he edits it and actually like makes it like a cohesive
makes it into a like
moment.
the Les Miserables movie versus the stage play. Also, is a similar thing.
Oh man, imagine those Sam Raimi snap zooms. Like,
No, I agree. The Sam Raimi
he's so good.
The Sam Raimi's
Like he slits a
intriguing.
guy's throat, and it's like a guy turns, is like screaming at the
But that's
camera.
way
like,
that plays way
That'd be
more
amazing.
to keeping
It'd be
it
really
as
good.
a stage
Can they just like
show.
co-direct? They would not co-direct
Oh,
well.
man.
That would be
I mean,
a crazy
they have
co-direct.
they have one thing that connects them in a way that I don't think a lot of people think about very often. Is that Oingo Boingo himself is like does the music
Danny
for all
Elfman,
their
yeah.
movies. Yeah, he's
And
there like
also Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness.
how does that connect them?
I can't remember why Tim Burton relates to that. But I think you have the best one. About
Cool.
Danny Elfman.
Nice,
but-
we got this.
Yeah, sorry.
Also, I just Googled it. I Googled it. I'm a liar. The budget for this was 8.5 million. 90% of that was upfront by Darren Lynn Bousman, and
They made this
box
for $8
office
million?
was 100,088, whatever
Oh.
this number is.
It probably
It was
got
bad.
suppressed.
It
Yeah,
was
I don't-
not good.
I doubt that
Um,
it went around into as many theaters as it should have. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was supposed to be originally like just to DVD release, which is how I found it, but I didn't know they actually did do like little film festival thingies and tried to get
I think
people to watch it.
2010 is like right around when DVDs sales started to really dip. You know, when it was
Yeah.
like, this is dying.
Okay, I think we gotta do the "do you got any more notes" moment.
Let me just check my notes.
I will say I have an excellent use of this. It's the other theory corner theme that Steve wanted to hear. I had a
Very
little,
good.
I had a little dumb, like theory while we were watching the movie. It's literally just that none of this shit's happening, and it's all happening from the micro doses of the. I assume this is part of a theory within a theory. It's the Zydrate. He's feeding her like little micro doses of Zydrate. She's tripping balls and imagining all this in kind of an Alice in Wonderland kind of a way.
Very Alice in Wonderland-esque.
That's all. That's a small theory.
Well, no, I think you're right in a way in that theory. Like it is kind of like Shiloh is the Alice and Grave Robber is the Cheshire Cat.
Cheshire Cat, yeah.
Guiding her through, right? It is this whole story parallels so many, which is why so many people can relate or understand it or call things before they happen, because it's a bunch of stories just kind of mixed together into this crazy world of gore and violence.
Gore and
So-
violence and magic and fantasy
In
and
goo.
cyberpunk. So
He's
with
a night surgeon. Get your blades out. Get your guts out. Gotta get you, night surgeon.
I love the
He's a night-
Nelly Furtado
That's so
version.
good.
It's so good. But yeah,
Put that
if
on my
you
playlist.
do you have any additional notes? Did you guys use up all your notes? DJ
You go
Granny
ahead,
was a good
Steven,
moment.
what do you think?
I mean, I did want to talk about the transitional comic book stuff. I thought it was really cool, and I
I knew
kinda-
you would like that.
Well,
I
'cause
was like, it's cool.
It's similar
cool
to
art.
your art style, even like your.
It is a little bit
grimoire-
similar to my
your
art style.
Grimoire pictures, and when you're working on that game that we don't really talk about anymore because of it's kind of like that.
I mean,
Cool.
we can still talk about it. It's like
Okay.
I'm still proud of all my work there.
It was very good work. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I do think it is similar to my art style. You're correct. I liked it because it gave us a little respite from the musical. So another reason that I have an issue with musicals, especially musicals where people sing the entire time, is that music expels energy from me. It drains energy from me. So when people are singing and there's music constantly, I am like being constantly sapped, like I'm like
Yeah.
a vampire is just like sucking my blood out, where I'm like, I need someone to just calm down and have a peaceful conversation for a second.
Let's
There's
have
too
some
much
tea.
music.
So you're
Yeah.
not the kind of person who like do you, when you're walking around the world, do you?
I need headphones.
Yeah,
in
I have
all
I have
the
headphones
headphones
time.
in all the time.
You do, okay.
But sometimes it's a podcast. Sometimes
Oh,
it's
okay.
music.
I never
Sometimes
listen
it's
to
nothing,
podcasts.
and I just don't want people to fucking look at me.
No, I need
music
pretty much 24/7. I need music
Yeah.
playing.
I was away.
I generally will have music playing, but I almost, equally I will have a podcast happening in my head where it's people just like this kind of shit, where it's just people talking about movies or something. And yeah, I can't. So I don't hate musicals. It's not. I don't think that's accurate to say. I do think that they are a little bit more difficult for me because, as I was saying before, like nuance is interesting to me, and a lot of the time nuance doesn't exist in musicals because people are like hanging off a fucking lamppost screaming at you about how they're feeling, and I'm like, yeah, okay, we get it.
I was thinking
you're-
Singing in the Rain too.
Yeah. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, and people love it, and I do love it sometimes, but I can't do it all the time,
That's fair.
And I did enjoy this movie, but you guys remember, like, as the movie ended, we kind of like sat and had a conversation for a minute, and then I was like, oh gosh,
Just like
I need a cookie, or I need some orange slices.
You guys
or-
want
I
some
also
pizza?
think too, like with this movie specifically, like it very much doesn't let you breathe. Like there are shows that give you a second. This is not one of them. Like you are on for the ride. It's like a roller coaster that just doesn't stop until it's done.
There's not a lot between songs too. I noticed, like listening to the soundtrack through today, I feel like I would like watch the movie again almost.
Yeah.
But the point I was trying to make is that I did like those comic book moments in between, and
Oh, they're super
I did
cool.
also like that they didn't necessarily feel the need to have every single thing told to you through the same lens as the rest of the movie. We got a moment to, and it felt very much like it was breaking up chapters or segments.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we're going into a new sort of chunk of the story because we have this interesting sort of visual thing to deal with. And I don't think it's perfect. I wish they took a little bit more time with those images, because 100% I can look at, like, even the image in the background right now, there's a blood splatter effect there that I am very familiar with in a software that I use.
Oh, for
that
sure.
I'm like, oh, I know that exact blood splatter, which
It
means
is
that
low
they
budget.
just splattered the blood and they didn't even take time to like add extra drips and stuff to like try and make it not look like just the brush, which I'm like,
But the
that's
actual
lazy.
line work, if you like look at like the card behind that, like that's really cool of
Of
like the
course.
kind of shadows. And I'm like,
Of course.
you were so close. You were
But
so
they also
close.
could have added like, like the comic book sort of like the inking style, like, like the dots or the lines or something. Like they could have added like a filter on there to,
Yeah.
it's just a little bit boring, but it's I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, as a person who literally it's my job to illustrate stuff, I'm like, they could have made this a little bit more interesting. It's a little flat. It could have been slightly better, but I still like it. I still like it a lot. This is just like harsh criticism, I think.
No, I love that. I mean, this movie is not perfect, but it doesn't mean I don't love it with all my heart.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And there's a heart being ripped out right there, and I'm not trying
Right
to do
there.
that to you guys or the movie. I'm saying, like, I like the illustrations a lot, but they could have been better. They
Also,
could have been better.
It has a barcode on it, which we didn't really mention, but there's a
Yes.
part where he rips the spine out of a man and he checks the barcode, and it's almost like, oh
think it's
fuck, I
that
got
spine.
the wrong spine. Is the vibe I got from that moment.
But is that true? Did he have the wrong spine? Or
No,
was it-
I don't think
Yeah.
he did.
I think
Okay.
he was like, his watch was going off where his like daughter had to take her medicine or something, and he was like,
And they're both lying to each other on the other line, being like,
I like
yeah,
that
I'll
part
come
too.
home. I just,
Yeah.
that's...
Where are you right
That-
now?
that is
the
actually
glass is broken. The glass
Yeah.
is broken.
Yeah.
You can hear the people outside. Well, I gotta come home and fix the window. It's like
The window broke? Hold on. That was actually the one moment where I was curious to see how they would accomplish that on the stage, and I assume they would have some sort of set where it's like two different sets like next to each other or something, where he's like,
or they would just be on either sides of the stage.
Oh, very much that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I love about this movie, there are many things, but the characters are very cool in themselves. The only thing that I wish could happen is that I got to delve into them more because clearly there's a lot. Obviously, like the tropes are there for sure. But like the moments that we get with Nathan and Shiloh, you get a lot of things happening very quickly that all make sense to my brain of like kind of a overprotective father and like a kid who is trying to rebel and wants to see the outside world, sure. But they also throw in like that moment of like him carving out someone's spine and her sneaking away. And that is such a beautiful moment of that I wish could have been explored a little bit more of like them being able to
they're both
lie
doing
to
something,
each other more.
yeah.
Like be like, no, we're both doing something bad that we should not be doing, but we have to keep face. To make sure everything's perfect and okay.
And at different points in your life as a human being, the level of which you gauge something being bad is completely different, right?
Oh, like, for sure.
Sneaking out when you're that age is just as bad as ripping somebody's spine out.
It's the same thing.
It feels like it.
It's the same thing. It feels the same, yeah.
So, with that,
I wasn't even being facetious. I know that sounded facetious.
No, not at all.
If his job is repoing organs, then yeah, he's gonna feel the same level of bad.
He's been traumatized into it. Like he's been like, like a little bit brainwashed.
I guess if the worst thing you've ever done is sneak out versus the worst thing you ever did was use a man,
your wife?
Use a man as a puppet. I think using a man as a puppet is worse than clandestine killing your wife. All right. Do you guys want to go into some final thoughts territory? Do you have any other notes, Cass? Looking at you.
Let me see. I mean, I have a lot, but I don't know. I think I've loved this movie for so long that I could probably write an essay about it, and I don't have time.
You just did a verbal essay about it.
I've written essays about professional
but like it could
wrestling,
be like it could be a lot longer.
I get that,
but I won't do that to you guys.
Do you want to start us? I'll tell you what. Do you want to start us off with your final thoughts / like anything else that you want to talk about?
Okay. That's a
because you are the guest and the guests.
Question. So I guess we didn't actually really talk about like the finale of this. I just want to touch on this really quickly.
Okay.
Obviously,
yeah, for sure.
Nathan, at the end, in this very dramatic moment, is killed by Roddy Largo, who sucks, and we have this whole closure moment between Shiloh and Nathan. In the original, Nathan didn't die, so that's a cool, fun twist. He survives.
I thought he was going to survive because of that moment where she's like, "You're going to survive."
Yeah, no, like you'll get out. Like I believe in you. Honestly, that scene was very well acted between both of them. Mm-hmm. I believed them, even though it was like a crazy outside world. When they were in it together, I believed that they cared about each other, and I love that. Final thoughts. This movie is a lot. It is a lot. It is nonstop craziness. It does not always make sense, and it does not need to, because the themes in it are so strong and call back to stories that we know as people already. You will have people who will watch this not thinking they will like it, relating to something in it, whether it is like me as like a Shiloh, like 15-year-old who is like, I overprotected and like all these moments and I just want to see the world, or you're like an older person who's like, God, I need to protect the people around me because this world is bad, or you see like other relatives or people you've passed in your life that are just garbage and trying to monopolize in the world. There's everything in here for somebody. It's just taking an open mind to see it and to have fun and not take it seriously. It just because it's musical theater doesn't mean you have to sit down in your chair and shut up and be quiet. This is not that kind of musical. Be loud, make comments, try to figure out as you go, which is very Rocky Horror as well. Like it's inviting the audience in to be part of it rather than like little school children who are just like, I'm being proper and watching Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat for the 50th time. But I also like that musical. It's good. Yeah, I don't know. It's good. I think people should watch it. It's a good time. That's my final thoughts.
What,
Bit rambly, but
what went well and,
Huh.
and even better? What could have been a little bit better for you?
honestly, I think what went well for them was their marketing, first of all. The way that they really, um, like, I don't know, like targeted
No, sorry,
audiences
I
that
was
like
laughing at like I remembered the song at the end. And
I
thought,
remember.
no, not that. I was thinking about the like. Sometimes I love you so much.
Oh, to know I love you so much,
Yeah.
but I do. So good.
Sometimes I'd stay up all night, wishing to
Wishing to
God
God
that I was the one who
wanted
died.
Steven, you and me, baby. Let's do it. We're doing this musical now.
Oh, just let me be Luigi, please.
You can be
I want to do
Luigi.
the I want to
No,
hold
you can be
fuck or
Waluigi.
whatever.
Sorry, Cass.
So
I
good.
didn't interrupt.
No, it's totally fine. But they did marketing very, very well. They sold it to the culty fans. They knew exactly who they were marketing to, and they found their audience very well. I think that as someone who loves camp so much, they crushed it on the camp level. They just went full throttle, commit to the bit the entire way through, and I love that. What I think they could have done better is definitely within the narration itself. There are a lot of ideas that are kind of being shoved into music or a scene that moves so quickly that you can't keep up. It just needs an editor. That's it. Just edit it down, make it clear, and you're good to go. But keep the camp.
That's
So
that's really concise. If you were going to give it like a rating, have you ever come up with either a literal rating, like go to 10 or to 5, or stars, or or a jokey rating? Do you have any sort of? How
I
would
would
you rate
give
this
it,
film?
but I'm biased though. I would give it 5 out of 5 vials of Zydrate.
A little glass vial?
And maybe I'm addicted now.
Yeah, addicted
Just-
to surgery.
Get that right in there.
Perfect. That's a really good, like. Whoa! The studio audience just showed up apparently.
Oh, they're here finally.
I've been trying not to. There's been a lot going on in this week's episode. I try not to overuse the sounds. Wait a second. Wow. Okay. Well.
That was a blood fart, by the way. Someone was trying to take my large intestine.
There's a movie on Prime.
There's like some
called,
gases in there. He's like pulling it out. You're like, oh.
Well, there's like a shot in the movie where it goes down like a board of organs that you can get, and the last one on the list is large intestine. And like, I think I yelled while we were watching it, "Hey, can I get like 2 feet of large intestine, please?"
Make that into a sausage.
Yeah.
There's a movie on Prime called like Terror at Bloodfart Lake or something. It's some like shitty horror movie, and my mom was staying with us on the weekend, and she kept being like, "Could you imagine what a blood fart would be like?" And I was like, "Mom, this is
I had one this morning.
terrifying on so many levels."
It's a very interesting question to be asked by your mother.
Yeah.
It's like
Love that.
The context is sort of that
She also
she's
looked at
never
you in a
been-
weird way that implied that maybe she has had
Yeah.
one before.
Could you imagine? Isn't that great? Isn't it so crazy if you could have something?
She's like, relate to me. We're the same, right? You've had this? No? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not weird. I'm just, it's a question.
I
And then
took it
Jason's
more
like,
as
sometimes I love you so much. Sometimes I
eyes.
love you so much.
I took it more like she had never been confronted with that concept before. Hopefully. Maybe not. I don't know. She's 60. She's probably farted a lot of blood. At any rate, Steve...
Looking forward to that in my future.
Oh
I
my
love that.
God.
Thank you.
Steve, why don't you hit us with your final thoughts? What went well even better in your rating for this musical Repo, the genetic opera?
My final thoughts on this movie are that it is perfectly up my... I was going to say alley, and then I was like, asshole? It's perfectly up my asshole.
I
Stop it.
remember.
I remember. It is something that it's perfect for my interests in every way to make me sit down and want to watch a musical, which I often don't want to do. And that's nothing against musicals, nothing against people that like musicals. I just have a really tough time getting into them. But this is how you do it for someone like me. I love horror movies.
I've done it to people before.
I love
like,
gore.
I'll sneak you into musicals. I'll make you love them.
And I do love music. Like, music is great. It's one of my most favorite
but like
things
musicals
in the
are
world.
hard.
Yeah.
You need the fun, silly spookies.
Yes. And a couple of the other movies we're going to be doing this month are movies that I really enjoy that have a lot of music in them and would be considered musicals. So, it's not impossible to find a musical that I like. And I got to say, I did enjoy this quite a bit. I don't know how much I would have enjoyed it if I had to watch it by myself, but the fact that we got to watch it together with our other friend Brian, that was great. And I loved, Cass, that you gave us sort of the open reins to be like, all right, guys, I just want you to know that before we start watching this, you can rip on it as much as you want. If you hate it, just tell me it's great. And I was like, okay, here we go. And I started my lawnmower up.
Absolutely.
And I started riding it around the living room, and I was like, I remember.
It's perfect. Like, that's exactly how Rocky Horror got its start as well. Like, it's stupid and crazy and zany. So
but it also
have fun.
It got me more engaged.
It's not serious.
Yeah, where I felt like I was allowed to yell at the movie without you, like, making you feel bad, which was good. That's a great thing. Because I also know what it's like when you're trying to show somebody a movie that you hold close to your heart in a near and dear way, and they just talk over it, or they're not paying attention to a part that you're super into. And what are you gonna say, Jason?
The Complete Owl, and also Basketball, and also Dirty Work.
Watch those together because you refuse to watch movies with your friends because you hate your friends.
Yeah,
maybe we should all watch movies together all the time. I don't know, but we're all speaking into a mic now.
Yeah, we're all microphone folks. Micro folks.
I can't get that close to mine because I have a guard. So it's so that I don't eat my microphone. But I did enjoy it quite a bit, and I liked the costume design. I didn't care for the set design entirely, but I did care for some of it. The music is great, not entirely. It's like everything. There's like stuff that I really like, and then stuff that I'm like, I could leave at the door and I'll probably forget about. But there are moments in this movie that I'm going to remember for a very long time.
Yay.
And not necessarily just the ones that I've already seen on TikTok telling me that Zydrate comes in a little glass vial.
A little glass vial?
A little glass vial. And it goes into the end of the gun like a battery.
Oh, I thought it was battering ram, but I was like, he doesn't say ram
the
very clearly.
Zydrate gun goes somewhere against your anatomy.
Your anatomy? Yeah, no, it's like a battery because it goes in like a battery.
It goes into the gun like a battery.
Like a battering ram.
It goes into the gun like a battering ram, like a battering ram, like a battering ram.
I thought it was metaphor. Metaphor. Okay, barely knew her. Nope. Okay.
But yeah, I think that some performances are amazing. Some of them are amazing in certain areas, but they lack in other spots. And I think it's a movie that is just like rife with greatness and problems. And I do think that, we talked about it a little bit. If this movie got like a $200 million budget and they had some psychopath come in to make it, it would be crazy.
Just go to town.
If James Cameron fucking made this movie.
Cameron gets really into musicals all of a sudden. And he's like, I want to do Repo.
But it's underwater. Opera. It's at the bottom of the sea.
It's Titanic that is currently on Broadway. That is amazing.
Titanic. Yeah.
Titanic.
Starring Rosé and Jacques.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes down to like a review, the story is, it's a Disney story. It's basically like any other musical you've ever seen, but that's, again, not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It makes it easier to follow because you're having to follow through people rhyming and shit, which is hard.
A lot. And a lot of lyrics very quickly.
And sometimes people are rhyming, but they don't even sound like they're rhyming, but they are.
Yeah, I'm a smart person, but when they're singing the exposition, I become an idiot, is the problem. I become dumb because it's like what I said at the beginning of the show.
Because you're dancing, your brain turns off and you're dancing.
You're like translating, even though they're speaking English for the most part.
It's like they're speaking another language. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I will say also as like just a side note for people who are not musical theater people like me, if you watch any good musical, and actually most musicals will do this. If you listen to the music alone without the lyrics, that will tell you the story in itself. The lyrics are just there to kind of like bump it up and give you more context. But like if you just listen to Repo, like zero lyrics, absolutely nothing, you're gonna get a vibe off of that because the music in itself is a language and it tells you something.
I think that about halfway through, I started paying attention to the themes and how they were sort of like intermingling. And I was like, oh, I'm appreciating this more, that I'm realizing that like Repo Man and his daughter and all the children, and they all have their own sort of like vibe to them. And then when they start to overlap, I was like, okay, this is actual art. It's not just nonsense noise and blood. I think for my what went well, the bangers, the songs that like really got me, and again that Repo design, the costume, it's like a weird like World War II era surgeon outfit, sort of science fiction-y. It's spooky,
it's
and
also kind of a hazmat suit.
It is. Yeah. It's like several scary things wrapped together, and it does the job of being intimidating in a very good way. And even though like Giles himself is not an intimidating figure, when he takes the helmet off and he has that sort of like unhinged jaw thing that he's doing, I'm like, okay, yeah, this guy he's spooking me, and he's like, I'm scared for everybody except his daughter.
Kind of a Norman Bates thing a little bit, like unsuspecting serial killer vibe, yeah.
And I also like that they give you that right away. You don't have to wait. It's not like a big reveal, because like I was unraveling the plot, being like, wait a minute, what's this guy doing about his daughter down here? Is he poisoning her? And then all of a sudden he's like, I'm the Night Sir, and I'm like, oh my god, this guy's also killing people in his basement.
Yeah, he's making a puppet out of people.
Yeah. So that's my what went well. What could have been better? I do think if there was a consistency, because like there are things that they clearly focused on in this, and there's stuff that they had to let go in order to get the project done, because they didn't have a huge budget, they didn't have a lot of resources, and if they were able to have that consistency throughout, I think it would have been amazing. When it comes down to a rating, I would have to say, I didn't know I loved you so much. I didn't know I loved you so much. I didn't know I loved you so much. But I do. There we go. I'm not a great singer, but that's my review.
You are a great singer.
You are a good singer. You're all good singers. We're all good singers. Let's start a trope. A troop.
A band. It's happening tonight.
Do karaoke, I think.
I'm honestly down. Anytime.
Karaoke, like the world is healing. But
I didn't know that I'd love it so much. I did not know that I'd love it so much.
You
I didn't know I'd love it so much.
But you did?
But I do. Yeah.
Wow.
But I do.
Stunning.
So I did forget to play a thing for final thoughts. I'll do it right now.
It's time for our final thoughts.
Beautiful.
Excellent. Little callback to the early 90s.
Like a full thunderstorm outside my window.
There is. I've been watching a thunderstorm during this whole podcast, so it's been like I've been.
I just got one too. I got the lag.
You guys see that flash all at the same time?
I actually also saw that flash. Did we all get the same flash? But we're in very different areas.
I mean, we're not really. We're all about.
I just heard the noise.
All about.
Yeah. So it's my turn. It's an enjoyable and weird musical. I don't think I had any moments where I thought this sucks, despite its low budget aesthetic. And I think I wrote that down because Cass, you came into this very much like, I know you guys are probably going to hate this. Don't rip it apart if you will. But that's not what happened. I think this movie is going to stay with me for a long time. I think I've been thinking about it ever since we watched it. I know it was 24 hours ago, but I actually think that works in its favor. The low budget aesthetic. I want to see this as a stage show, and I think that will enhance this experience quite a bit more. Watching it with friends is a must, as it boosted it almost a complete letter grade or number grade for me. I think where it suffers is like the movie version. What I mean by that, of course, is I think as seeing it in theater or seeing it on stage would be infinitely better than this particular version that we watched.
I think that's the case for any musical, really.
It's true. I do think Hamilton, like the Disney version of Hamilton, is awesome because the original cast is all
It's pronounced cannibal, Jason.
Hamilton.
Cannibal.
Oh.
Campbellton. It can be kind of hard to understand what's happening at times because the dialogue is in music stanzas. So it isn't 100% straightforward what they're talking about. I recognize this could be remedied by several viewings. The songs are great. I like that a lot of the soundtrack reminds me of other songs from the era, metal and industrial. That's something we didn't talk about. We kept busting into like, we'd hear like a little like musical sting from like Living Dead Girl or Due to the Ditches and Burn as Dragula or like Korn.
We did that a little bit
so
last
much.
night, over and over again. We're just like Dragula.
I'll be listening to songs from this going forward. It's a thing that I do when I go see a theater, like in theater musical. I'm trapped listening to the soundtrack to it for a week.
So Jason's gonna be like, he's gonna write his Instagram score for the movie, and then on the way to work tomorrow, it's gonna be like, didn't know I love you so much, and he's like slowly going up by 0.5.
Monster assassin. What precision? Yeah.
I remember.
The major standout in this film was, to me, was Paris Hilton's performance. I think we talked. I think when we were talking about that a little bit when we went over that, but I just wanted to reiterate that she absolutely kills it. And may I say, she's kind of a good actor for this sort of thing, for this this like grindhousey kind of horror thing. Like
I believed her campiness. Like
Yes.
every moment that she was on stage, I knew that I was watching something that was elevated and like not real, but it was at the same time. I believed her the whole way through.
Yeah,
Everything matched. There wasn't any like performances that felt out of place, really. Like even Goodfellas guy, like he was right there with his Pirates of the Caribbean haircut.
Is he
and shit.
Mara Sorvino's dad?
I don't know. Maybe.
Hey Google, is
I also will say,
Paul Sorvino?
I didn't talk about him much, and I should have more, but I love Bill Moseley. I love him so much.
He's so good.
He crushes at giving us like the perfect comedic content in this absolute trash fire.
The
chaos.
brother song was pretty good too. Where they're
Mark
just,
it
like,
up.
where they're
It's
like,
good.
where they're just sort of circling each other and like
Throwing
hurting
brains
each
at
other
each
and
other,
throwing brains at each other and like stabbing people in the
people.
room and like just like a woman dying the whole time, but they don't even care.
Very camp. He really did such a good job. I think it's absolute standout performance.
It's just goofy, but like I could see that on stage being extremely hilarious. Like, where in movie form, I don't know if it worked translated as well, but like I could see that on stage being super funny. Like
people like rolling out of their seats, being like, "What did you just say?"
This guy, and he's like, "He just murdered that woman, and she's not even dead yet. She's dying."
He keeps just stabbing wildly. I love live theater and will absolutely go see this should they ever revive it. And that's when I give this a 3 out of 5.
Yeah.
But the caveat is that it's a 4 out of 5 with friends. And I said that to you guys right after we finished. Also, it's a solid 4 out of 4 if you have friends. I highly recommend it either way. I give this movie removing all the guts from a finance dodger, repossessing the liver for myself, and using the person like a puppet.
And putting it into a shaker for a new drink.
Yep. What went well? Music and weird story. Even better. It needs an update. Like I just want to see this. Like we went through the last 7 years or so of just like so many reboots and remakes, and this was such a cultural phenomenon at the time that I don't know how this hasn't just been Like somebody just gets the license because it's such an interesting thing.
It does seem like something like that, really. Like it.
But also, like, would you want to remake Rocky Horror? I wouldn't.
That's a good point.
But they have like multiple times.
Of
like,
course,
they've
but
done
it's
it.
very much an homage, not like trying
Yeah.
to do a retelling or like a revamp.
But maybe that's the key, right? Is you do an homage, you don't do a remake, right? It seems
Rocky
like something
Horror
that could
also
do with a
probably had-
facelift, so to speak.
Like Rocky Horror was like isn't like a like Rocky Horror is a different beast because it's like a 70s movie, you know.
Oh,
Like
for
it's-
sure. And Rocky Horror is a brilliant piece of art. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
This I just think that this could benefit from, and I don't mean I don't mean like it's 2008 and then in 2018 we have like a shitty remake of this. I think
You know what would be cool?
I just think
This
a
movie
remake
takes place
of
in
this.
2056. In 2056, I hope someone does a remake of Repo the Genetic Opera.
I hope so. By that point, I mean we're
I
not
think
gonna
that's
be
just
alive
right
because
on the lore brand.
It's
Yeah.
gonna.
Of
But
doing
we're
it
gonna
takes
be
place in
living-
2086. And they're like, in 2086, people need more feet, and everyone just has like feet, like extra
Too
feet.
many feet everywhere.
And I also think that like don't take any fucking liberties.
Sometimes
If a
I need
remake
more
happens.
feet.
Yeah.
Just make this
Sometimes I
fucking.
need
Just make this
more.
over again with better graphics, like they do
Yeah.
with video games. Like when they remaster a video game, it's the same.
Like a remaster of Resident Evil.
Resident
Just
Evil
do that.
4, Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4 remakes, and Final Fantasy 7 remake. Actually, Final Fantasy 7 is a bad example because it's a remake in that it's a different thing. But the remakes of the Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4 are incredible at doing exactly what I'm talking about for this film. I don't think this will stand the test of time the way that Rocky Horror will.
I think we'll be in the apocalypse by then anyway.
Yeah,
It will just be our future.
I'll have organ failure and blood disease.
The thing about Rocky Horror, though, is that there's boomers who will still dress up like fucking Dr. Frankenfurter.
Dr.
But one day
Frankenfurter?
I'm gonna be old, and you guarantee, like, you put Repo
That's
the
true.
Genetic Opera on, and I'm 60 years old. You think I'm not gonna be like, I am there?
Yeah.
Like,
They don't have fucking
immediately.
Mario Kart 64 in the fucking old folks' home. I
Oh,
will
yeah.
riot.
I'm gonna be quoting like old vines and be like, they were roommates,
They
and
were
my nurse is
roommates.
gonna be like,
They
are
were
you
roommates.
okay? And I'll be like,
Road
but they were
work,
roommates.
they had
I almost
for
Listen,
Don't
I'll
like
be right
croissant.
next to you going like, I can't believe you've done this.
I can't believe
Dressed
you've
up
done
as
this.
that guy.
Kyle.
So good.
Yeah.
Give me
The
a hat back,
fuck,
Jordan.
Richard?
Give me a hat back, Jordan. Okay.
Look at all those chickens.
Look at all those chickens. I freaking love bats.
I put a whole bag of jelly beans
Give
up
me my
ass.
money, bitch. Ding ding.
We are going to be crazy in the old folks'
I
home if we
smell like
survive that
beef.
long. It's gonna be wild.
I smell like beef.
I smell like beef.
I smell like beef.
I smell like beef.
Well, we
I
did it.
smell like beef.
We did it.
Yeah.
Well, this has been
So
another amazing episode of. Hey, did you see
Yeah,
this
I
one?
can't believe it.
It
This was
finished
like
strong.
it's like we were on X Games mode.
We were on X Games mode.
It's another 3-hour episode. Cass, you're the king of the 3-hour
I'm so
episodes.
sorry. I just have lots of things to talk about.
I know, but you
And
did last time too. You're very good at fixating on the conversation and
It
having
used
so
lots to
many
say.
notes.
We used to talk about how, like, oh, with more people on the show, that the show goes longer. But I think it's just if we get passionate about what we're talking about, it's going to always elongate the, the
It has to do
conversation.
with the conversation. It has nothing to do with the content or the
Yeah.
amount of people.
I also
Did you-
will say I was talking to a friend of mine coming home from work today, and I was like, wish me luck because I could literally write a full essay about this and I need to not speak for 3 hours this time. And then I
This
was like,
is-
dang it.
This is
I think
did
you
it
could probably
again.
write a dissertation,
Yeah.
like a doctorate
Yeah.
style thing.
I
on
could do
this,
that about every Final Fantasy game, so I feel you.
I get it.
This is immortalized on Twitch and then YouTube, and also program note, we're taking a break next week. I'm out of town. Going forward, we are of course going to be doing 8 o'clock on Thursday nights. Cass, I can't overstate enough how enjoyable you are to like talk to. You're like, you fit in for what we're trying to like create here so well, and I keep saying,
You're one of us.
I'm going to be.
One of us.
I'm going to be.
One of us.
You're going to be in our short list of constant guests.
Sweet.
So-
Let me know. I got ideas. I'll bring out my lists again.
Bring your list.
I feel like, Steven, that's the next soundbite you need to do. I've got my list.
Cass's list.
I've got my list.
Very nerdy vibes.
It's just like an unrolling piece of paper
Like a
for
giant
way too
scroll.
long. Yeah.
But as always, for Steven and for Cass, I'm Jason.
For Jason and for Cass, I am Steven.
Aw, for Steven and Jason, thank you again for having me. I'm Cass.
And as we ask each and every week, we have to ask a question, and that is, hey, did you see this one?
We do enjoy you here.
Thank you for letting me just like be a little nerdling and hyperfixate.
I know, but I think that the last time you were on was one of the most enjoyable episodes I've ever had because we just talked about like philosophy and shit. I also made a horrible mistake last time.
What did you do?
I quoted the wrong philosopher like a fucking idiot.
You have Jujul. What do you mean? It's right there.
I know. I did it. I did a wrong job.